Okay, we are live. We got nobody with us yet. Now, I did not announce this, so nobody's anticipating it.
We're
It'll it'll
sneaking up on.
it'll begin to pop up um on people's streams screens. We got two in, so we'll get up to 20 or 30 probably. We
So
got a
until
couple
people,
got a couple of folks here now. Hi guys. We did not promote this ahead, so we're doing it kind of cold turkey.
we're
Um,
sneaking up on you.
it's gone to 9. We now have 9 people
Hey,
in with us, so it's perking right along.
we've got a coven. We've got a full coven.
Silver Creek, right? Silver Creek. I sent you the link here. Welcome to come join us if you like. And I guess I could put the link. I could put the link here in the chat. It's a little odd. I don't have the. Oh, wait a minute. There's something else I need to do, I think. Okay, the lobby mode, right. Okay. Um, yeah, let me post this link. Use the link I've got posted. Um, we have a Facebook user. I don't know who it is. First class fish, saying you must be on the wrong stream. Oh, he's on the natural aquarium stream. Yeah, we're on 5 different streams, and they're cumulative. So altogether, between all of them, there are currently 8 people viewing. If you go to Father Fish, you'll probably get 4 or 5. Mary, you'll have a couple. EJ's up. Luke's is up. There could be a number on Luke's. He's got a bigger channel. Anyway, so there's all that. You're on the Father Fish stream. Okay. Well, that's what it's all about. We've got a lot of different streams open. Chew, hello. How are you?
There's so many streams where we're coming at downright river.
Really? That's the hope. I don't know as I can call it an expectation. Yeah, we're on 6 different channels right now. And we got 8 people. Keeps vacillating 8 to 9. Anyway.
Someone's going to find us by accident just because we're on so many.
Well, that's right. That's right. RJ, yeah. RJ wants to talk about catfish. What's your favorite catfish? And interesting. I don't think I have a favorite catfish. I've had a lot of different catfish. I've had some big ones and little ones. I even had a goonch once. It wasn't a big one. It was only about a foot long, but it was a goonch. So that was pretty cool.
I've always enjoyed catfish because although I don't actually have any now, but they're just so unique. Everyone is unique. I had the walking catfish, which is a phenomenal fish. That is just great. Had the electric catfish. That was a once in a lifetime experience that I had for 19.
Yeah, I've had those. Did you really? Wow.
Yeah, 19 years. Oh yeah, and so it died in a tragic fish-related accident. But aside from that, it was 19 years old at the time and still doing fine.
Wow.
Um, I've had bullhead catfish. They get big, but they're kind of nice. Uh, interestingly enough, bullhead catfish, if you ever see them in the wild, they actually herd their offspring. They have thousands of offspring.
Right,
And,
I've seen that. Yep.
right, and the mother and father will herd them. And the intriguing thing is, one will stay with the herd, the other will go to feed. And when she comes back, she'll circle rocks. She won't come straight back to her family group. She'll go to a rock, she'll swim around it, then she'll swim around another rock, and then she'll swim around another rock to see if there's anything following.
Right.
As she comes back, they are incredibly unique fish. Like I said, a little large for the average aquarium. But then I think how about Mad Toms? You ever do those?
Again, I've never been able to find one. I tried to catch them. They're native to Florida, but I never got one, and I've never had one.
I've seen them at auctions. Pairs of Mad Toms at auctions, and I really, really wanted it, but they usually went for some pretty serious dollars.
They're real small catfish. They don't get big, and they have a dorsal that runs, I guess, 3/4 of the length of the body. It's not just one little set of rays. It's the whole top of the fish.
It's a really sharp fish, and like I said, I've only ever seen them at auctions, and people from other clubs will bring them in. I guess there's catfish clubs or whatever.
Yeah, yeah. When I was in Florida, I always expected I would catch one, and I never did. I caught a lot of cats, but they were the river. The one you were just describing.
Bullheads or channel cats.
Bullhead, yeah, the channel cats.
The channel cats get big too. They're interesting fish. Channel cat.
They do get big, yeah.
It's a lovely fish.
They'll get 40 pounds. They get real big.
Well, before the walking cats were banned, when you were a kid and I was a kid, they still sold an albino version of them.
Yep, and I've had them. In fact, when I acquired Henry Hall's collection and set it up on Pier 5 before the aquarium was built, we erected a big tent and built this U-shaped display with about 25 big tanks in it. And Henry Hall had one of those about a foot long, the albino walking cat, and a lot of other things. Well, I put it in with a 3-foot shovel nose. The next morning, the shovel nose was dead.
For sure.
His entire tail was chewed off.
Yep.
In one night.
That is a fish that has no mercy. I had mine in with I had it in with a smallmouth bass when it was little. And after it grew up, a smallmouth bass, although they don't stay small long, they grow really fast. But nevertheless, that bass would pick on that catfish. And after that, every time I put a cichlid in the tank, if it looked like a bass, it was murdered as soon as it hit the water.
Wow.
This catfish would come up from the bottom like a torpedo and grab the cichlid by the head and rip its head off in one shot. They have incredibly sharp teeth. But on the other hand, it did not care about cardinal tetras. Little tiny fish could swim around and would just sit there. Yep, angelfish. No problem with angelfish. I mean, if as long as it didn't look like a bass, this fish was totally docile and friendly and did its own thing, unless you forgot to feed it.
Now, I saw them wild once in Florida a few times, but on one occasion, I saw them in a boil. It
Hmm.
was literally a boil of these walking catfish. They were all 6 to 8 inches long, and they were swarming like this, going up
Yeah.
to the surface, breaking the surface, coming back down, just like they were boiling. It was a strange, and there were hundreds of them. I mean, it
Yeah.
was a big kind of a big thing, very very strange.
They're cool how they change color too when they go from juvenile to adult. They'll actually just change color. They go from it's kind of a brown to that black with the white porthole spots on.
Right, right, right.
You know, that's kind of neat. But the nice, interesting thing about the walking cat is it'll grow to the size of the aquarium and not outgrow your aquarium. I had
Oh,
mine for I had mine for about 6 years in a 45, and it only got about 5-6 inches long.
really?
Yeah, it didn't have it,
Yeah,
just,
I never kept them. Well, by the time I was really ready to keep them, they were outlawed, and I was in Florida, so they were outlawed in Florida early.
well that went to my advantage because I went to a pet store and I walk in and there's a walking catfish swimming around. And I looked at it, and the owner walked by, and I knew him. You know, I got to know the guys who own the local pet stores, and I looked at him and said, "Damn, you got an illegal fish in your aquarium. It's a walking catfish."
Huh,
And he just walks over, grabs the net, grabs a bag, scoops it out, throws it into the bag, and hands it to me. He says, "No, I don't.
funny.
It's your problem now."
Yeah, I used to get that occasionally. People would bring illegal fish in. I got to the point, the first time or two, I sent them out with them, but that was meaningless because they couldn't do anything with them. After that, I would take them and get them out the back door same day.
Yeah, no, it was kind of funny. Here you go. And I brought it home, and that I again, they had been banned for a while, so I'd never kept one before. Now I had one, and like I said, I just not knowing what it was, I threw it in a 55-gallon tank with my gas, and it was getting picked on, but it wasn't. It was doing okay. They're fast. The fun thing is if you ever try to catch them when they get bigger, you drain all the water out, and they'll actually just run around the bottom of the gravel with no water in the tank. They're just as hard to catch on land as they are in the water.
Oh, they are. That's right.
It's not an easy fish to catch. But those are fun. The upside down catfish, the Synodontis, those things you can keep for decades.
I've had a lot of them.
They're fun. They spiral around when they swim. Sometimes they can't figure out which way they want to go. They're a lot of fun. There's some beautiful Synodontis. I had a collection of. And if you ever collect Synodontis, you'll find out they try to tear each other up. They also heal overnight. So one day you'll see them all shredded, and the next day they'll all be healed again. But
I've never had them beat each other up, but I've never kept them in small tanks either.
No, it was a 55, but I had about 8 in my collection.
Oh, huh.
And they were all different. So they beat each other up. But the trick was don't feed them. If you stop feeding them, they stop fighting. As soon as you overfeed them, they'll start tearing each other up.
Oh, that's funny.
They just have extra energy and then just go at each other for the fun of it. But it was amazing how fast they'd heal. You'd walk in, you'd see all the skin ripped off, and they're all pink and such. And the next day you walked in and they were healed. They're also pretty good against. They don't get parasites. They don't get sick very much. Most catfish.
Yeah, that's true. They're pretty healthy.
They're pretty healthy fish in general. So.
Huh.
Of course, then there's Corydorus. Most people love those.
Yeah, First Class Fish was saying he wound up with 2 panda cories that apparently came in as eggs on some plants he bought from a club member. Food web in his setup must have been decent for them to make it.
Yep. Something, that's the fun part about getting plants from a club. everyone's breeding fish, so it's always, you never know what you're going to get in these plants. You know, someone will sell these things, and you put the plants in the water, and all of a sudden,
Well,
there's all these.
particularly if they're doing like killies or rainbows or anything that has a sticky egg.
Yeah, you get all kinds of fun things, you know, and it's kind of funny. I mean, when I used to auction, I would even ask, you know, what were these plants in with? And sometimes you get, well, they're in with something, and people might want that. And other times people will say, no, they're in with guppies. The plants are safe. There's nothing going to come out of that.
Funny.
Guppies or whatever, you know. So, no, I think catfish are, you know, really underrated. I think that you know, people should play with them more.
There is a wider variety of catfish in the Amazon than any other genera, any other family of fish. By 80 or 90%. I mean, it's substantially high. The variety of catfish outclasses every other class of fish in numbers of species.
It's probably true. They're very well adapted. So you know, each catfish adapts to its specialty environment. So yeah, you're going to get a lot of species. It's something that should speciate rapidly.
Right.
If you think about it, you know, even just cories. If you look at the armored varieties of catfish, they're scary. I mean, there's just so many. There's not even enough names for them. They're numbered now. You know.
Yeah, and that's true. It goes on and on. I mean, I mentioned the gooch. That's where's that from? India? I think it's from India. It's a fish that gets big enough that it is reputed to have swallowed people whole. I'm sure small people, but nonetheless.
Yeah. Well, you know, there is a downside to the giant catfish. You know, I mean, probably about 20 years ago or so, all of these red-tailed catfish came into the hobby. I don't know if you remember that all of a sudden.
Oh God, I've had a few. I've had some big ones.
Oh, well, nobody knew much about them when they first came in. They were all about 2 to 3 inches long at your local bench.
Yeah.
And they were near and dear. Those things were expensive.
Yeah, they were catching the spawn.
Yep.
So they could get hundreds of them in one dip, and they were perfect size to ship. They shipped well. They're an air breather, of course.
Yep. And they were all over the place. And like I said, they were expensive little fish, but people bought them. And then all of a sudden, I'd say about a year later,
they're coming back 6 inches, 8 inches, 12 inches, 1.5 feet.
Monster fish. Yeah, those things were
aggressive. They just keep growing. I had the biggest one I ever had was 3 foot. In fact, I was looking at a picture of it today. I had a 500-gallon tank. I had that fish in it, and I had 2 clown knife fish that were also 3 foot long. They were caught in a local pond in Venice, Florida.
I believe that. Yeah, that's a fish that would probably do well in Florida. As a big fish, it's going to do well against the competition, and it's going to get gigantic.
Yeah, they're highly predaceous. So.
Oh yeah.
As is the catfish, for that matter.
I can't imagine what you'd be feeding it at that size.
Not a lot. I was kind of minimal feeding. I'm trying to remember what I fed it. Probably big goldfish. I don't remember. Probably.
Did you find someone who took it off your hands, or?
I did. I had 5 of them. There was a pond that was being drained for construction, and they were in there. It was like a lake size pond, pretty big. And the fellow who brought him to me was there, and he was using a net and a bucket and catching them. He came up to the shop in his pickup, and he had two or three big vats. He was um, a professional bass fisherman, entered all the contests. So he had the equipment to be able to carry stuff. He had about 10 of them. And I think I bought 5 from him. He put the rest in a local pond. And that's kind of what happened to the ones I had. They wound up going in ponds.
It's an impressive fish. It's a beautiful fish.
It really is.
It's not something people really want to keep at home because that's a fish, unlike the walking cat, that will outgrow anything that it's in.
Yeah, and it'll eat anything it's with if they can fit it in its mouth. I have a picture. I don't know if I can find it. Where in the world did I see it? I was looking at it today. A picture of a red-tailed cat with a 1-foot rat in its mouth. I caught a big rat in a trap, and
Just
threw it in there dead. And he grabbed it. In fact, I've got a video of it eating the rat.
Yep. It's, something people ask me, they say, how do I know anything about a catfish? And the one thing I'm going to tell people is look at its mouth. If the mouth is facing forward, it's generally a predator. Okay? It may be a sneak predator that it's going to sneak up on your fish and suck them down at night. Also the size of its mouth. Look at the size and the orientation.
Right.
Catfish's mouth is towards the bottom and the barbels are on the bottom. The fish is generally a scavenger.
Right.
If it's got antennae or barbels sticking up upwards or all around its mouth, and the mouth is in the front, it's either a predator or a nocturnal sneak predator. It's going to be sucking up your little fish. So
yeah, that's right.
That's a piece of advice because there's a lot of catfish you're going to see. You're going to go into a shop and you just have never seen these before, and that's cool. You want to try different fish that you've never seen before. And although there's the internet now, there's a lot of weird species, especially if Brazil opens up now and lets us have more that you're never going to have seen. But when you see things like the frog catfish, I don't know if you remember the frog
yes.
catfish years ago.
Yes. Yeah, I've had. There were a couple of fish in that family, a couple of catfish, and I had several. I didn't have them all. I had 2 or 3. They're small. They don't get real big.
But they had a huge mouth. They are all mouth.
Oh yeah, the gulper, they call them.
Gulpers, yeah, they'd suck up. I mean, they'd suck up anything that they could find in the aquarium, their own size.
They were all mouth. That's right.
They were all mouth. I remember when those came out. And people,
and when they eat, it's like they can eat something bigger than them, because as they get it in them, they curl it.
Mm-hmm.
So they can literally eat a fish bigger than themselves.
Those were impressive fish. And they never came in small, thank God. They always came in about 4 to 6 inches.
4 to 6 inches. That's right.
Yeah. And if you were smart, you knew how to stay away from those things when they came in. But I remember a pet shop that got about 3 of them. Then they got 3 of them back. Then they sold 2 of them. Yeah, and then they got 3 of them back. These frog catfish kept coming and going in the same store.
I know. I did that with a number of fish. They'd go out. They would come back. Oscars commonly. You sell a little 2-inch Oscar and it comes back at 6 inches. You sell it again, it comes back at 10 inches. Sell it again, it comes back at 1.5 feet. You sell the same fish over and over and over.
Yep. Well, something. Oscars are amazing fish. We're talking catfish, but we're just talking, so I might as well go into it. Oscars will come up and they will take food out of your hands. They will sit at the glass.
Yeah,
and
they're
beg.
the closest thing to a puppy I think there is.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah.
They're just wonderful, wonderful fish, but they are a major commitment because not only do they get big, but they get there quickly. I mean, it's a fish that really does grow on you. In what ways
and they're not all that hardy. Are they? I mean, they're a strong, healthy fish if they're a strong, healthy fish. But you can kill them. I mean, you can mess them up real bad. They can get hole in the head.
Hole in the head, yeah.
They can get fungus. I mean, if they're in bad conditions, they're going to get sick from it.
The thing is, they get into bad conditions because they outgrow their aquariums, and for some reason, although hole in the head is hexameta, as I recall, if you got bad water quality, that's half the battle for the hexameta to start eating your
That's absolutely right. Yep.
And when you got a 16-inch fish, unless you've got a 500-gallon aquarium, you're doing a lot of water changes with what they eat. I mean, I had a friend of mine who used to throw 50 goldfish in for his Oscar. And there's a big net full of goldfish, throw them in, they were gone in seconds.
Oh, I know. Peacock bass are another one. They get really big. Well, it's a bass. Bass get big. That's a beautiful fish, though.
Oh,
you mentioned Brazil. I wanted to bring up something about that because it's back in the news. For years, under essentially a communist government, Brazil maintained a white list. Now, there was an attempt to create a white list here in this country last year, and it got, earlier this year actually, it got beat down, thank God. But in Brazil, they had that white list for upwards of 20 years, or a generation. And they finally got a conservative government in that abolished the white list and created a protected species list, an endangered species list, which makes perfect common sense.
Well, there always was an endangered species list. I mean, that there've always been Brazilian.
But everything was on it, except for a limited number of fish that were available for export.
Right. Well, that was originally dreamed up because the robber barons were literally raping the waterways, and
that's exactly right.
They would drop poison.
Well, what they were doing was they were mining and clear cutting to create monoculture and cattle farms.
Right. And they poisoned the river, and they literally just put nets at some point, and everything that washed into the net was shipped to the United States. I got my first armored catfish that way. It was just in a bunch of other catfish. If you remember, even
but that never endangered the cultures. What was endangering the culture was despoiling the environment. And it was doing it at the expense of the native people. So the experience in Peru with support for native people and creating through organizations like Tayaba a market for the fish that they could catch.
Right.
That finally began to impact Brazil, and when they got a conservative government in there, a couple of things happened that were really interesting. They abandoned the white list in favor of an enormous variety of
We
fish
should
that
tell
were.
people what a whitelist is. We should tell everyone what a whitelist is.
A whitelist is a list of those species that are legal to possess, and in the case of Brazil, to export. In the case of the U.S., the white list would be a list of those species that are legal to import or to take state to state.
Right.
And it's usually 100 items on that list. So you imagine how many tropical fish species are in the hobby. That list would be 100 long and would contain only those items that were most popular and most widely distributed. So that's what finally got stopped. But in Brazil, it was worse than that because there are probably 100,000, as many as 100,000 species of aquatic animals in Brazil. Brazil's a very, very big country. And a lot of these fish only live in the bend in a creek. That entire population, the entire species, lives in an area that's no more than a quarter of an acre, a half an acre.
Or a flooded field that floods once a year and the killifish spawn
in
in
the killies, that's right. Yeah. So what's happened that the whitelist was abandoned a little better than a year ago, which opened the door to being able to export whatever people could catch. There's a YouTube channel called Down Under that has been researching the waters in Brazil. It's a remarkable channel. It's called Down Under. If somebody could put the link in, it's definitely worth looking it up and subscribing. He comes out with new videos every week describing new species of fish. And the thing that's so wonderful about what he's doing and what's happening is that they're determining now there are well over 1,000 brand new species of tetra that have never been exported, that are beginning to be exported. And again, as I say, a lot of these are living in very tiny areas. The entire population is living in an isolated little pond or bend in the creek where they can't escape to go far, and they've been there for 1,000 years, whatever.
Yeah, exactly. Now, there's some interesting things that that we can get, assuming this is done intelligently, and like I said, nobody takes a seine net and wipes out the species overnight. We stand to get some interesting stuff. I mean, I like that. That's going to be very positive for us.
So now, the same government that was booted out 4 years ago has managed to steal the election and is forcing their way back in power. And the people in Brazil are in the streets right now by the millions of people demanding that the person who they voted for is put in power and not this criminal cabal that is attempting to force their way back in. Now, here's the thing. If the people of Brazil fail and the criminals get back in, they're going to go back to a white list. And the reason they will is because the robber barons, as RJ described them, the miners, the gold miners, the monoculture farmers who buy up tens of thousands of acres, plunder the land, to put their single banana crop in, and the farmers, the mega cattle farmers that are raising 100,000 cattle at a crack, which destroy bodies of water. The land is going to go back to them, and these species are going to be unavailable to us again. So those people who claim that politics has nothing to do with the hobby are just ignorant, because it has everything to do with the hobby. It has to do with the fish we're able to get. Now, I'll grant you, somebody who keeps goldfish is not going to be worried about that. Or somebody who only does guppies is not going to be worried about that.
Well, as someone who does killies,
Right.
I mean, every time there's a civil war in Africa, there's a species of killie that becomes unobtainium. And,
right.
it's literally, there's peace, and all of a sudden you'll get things from Uganda, like Ugandensis, or you'll get things from Congo, or you'll get fish that will reappear again when there's a brief pause in the fighting, and then they disappear again. So over the years, I've seen a lot of species come and go. As much as I think the destruction of the environment has wiped out a lot of very, very common fish from when we were kids. I mean, there was a lot of fish that were wild imports that were dime a dozen. No, I wouldn't say dime a dozen, but they were
common. Yeah.
I some years ago I had Mexican fish, the Permodon alvarezi, which is a desert pupfish, and apparently the entire habitat of the alvarezi became a Walmart parking lot.
Oh.
And they became extinct. They literally needed a parking lot, so they just filled the only puddle in the world where they lived.
Honest
and
God.
The fish still exists. Thank God, it's in a museum. Yeah, it's in Spain.
Was that right?
Huh. Yeah, and every so many years they overpopulate and they give them out to the hobby. So alvarezi, you'll see pictures of them on the internet. You'll see them around. It's comical because it's an extinct fish, but it's not extinct in the hobby.
Right.
It's not an easy fish to breed. I had them, and the female will turn around and will eat its own eggs the moment it lays them.
Wow.
It just literally lays the eggs, turns around and eats it. And the male beats the female to death, and it's just a real pain in the hindquarters to keep these things going. But they're beautiful. The female, as I recall, is blue, and the male is purple. Bright purple little fish. Cute as hell. Likes warm water, hard water, because it's a desert fish. But literally, let's put it in a parking lot and we wipe out a species of fish right off the planet.
Right.
So it was a fun thing. My daughter fell in love with it. And, I was down to one. That one lived for about 2 years, and my daughter would go hand feed it. The puppy fish, she used to call it. Oh, the puppy fish. And I'd come up and eat out of her hand, and it was, can we get more of these, Daddy? No, sweetheart, they're extinct.
Funny.
So, but politics has a lot to do with our hobby. But then, what's interesting about our hobby is that we learn a lot about our environment. We learn a lot about the world, geography, climatology, water quality, environmentalism. It's not a hobby that exists in a vacuum. And what
That's
it does,
right. Yeah.
And what it does for kids who have an interest and they have a curiosity, I mean, they start out with, I want to get this catfish or this fish, a hatchet fish. Well, how does the hatchet fish come into being? What environment does it come from? Why is this fish? Why can this fish fly? What's the advantage of flying in where it comes from, or why is it a top fish, or what's the what is the climate that it comes from? These are all these things that kids with curiosity are going to learn. They're going to develop, like we did with curiosity. You know, we went out into the woods. I don't know if I know Father Fish probably did when he was a kid. Go out and play in the woods. Go out
Oh
and play.
yeah, caught my first fish in a stream in the woods in a little jar. We put jars down in the creek in the stream, and would go back the next day or two.
Yep. That's I mean we all went out and we all experienced. Kids these days, I mean, you go to a park, you don't see a lot of kids there anymore. They're home watching the internet. They're watching us. Hopefully you're watching us, kid.
Yeah, right.
We're telling you about all the stuff you're missing out there, but stay with us for as long as we're on. Then go out there.
I'm not finding that channel down
out there, but stay with us for as long as we're on. Then go out there.
Right. See, I need to get out of this.
So, in any case, might as well while we're doing stuff, we're going back to catfish. One of the funniest stories I can tell about my electric catfish. We were moving, and we were between homes. My lady friend and I at the time. That goes back before my wife, many years. And we were moving, and her parents moved my aquariums into her garage.
Huh.
Well, it was a place to keep them, and they had heaters. But while we were still going out actively looking for a new apartment every day. And so it was just a quick stop. So I get to the garage and I set up the electric catfish tank. It was 29. And a friend of ours, he was a chef, and he had these amazing Tupperwares that seafood came in. They were like a nylon plastic, and they were round, and they were watertight. Nothing, so you could just put fish in it. This was a great thing to transfer this electric catfish. It was about 8 to 10 inches at the time. It was a big plastic tray with a watertight cover. So we moved it, and I'd open the cover so the catfish could get some air while I was filling the tank. And this fella comes downstairs and sees this big catfish swimming around in this little tub. And, he looks at the thing, and I said, it's electric catfish. Now, I'm going to preface it by the fact he was an Israeli army. He was an Israeli soldier, a very tough individual, someone who fought in Egypt and the Sinai and whatever. And, very stoic kind of individual, ex-military. And he walked over and he put his hand in there. No, don't do that. Now you can figure this catfish was really angry. He was cold. He'd been in a Tupperware. He was bouncing. He was a real angry fish at that point. And we were standing on a cement floor, a damp cement floor. And this poor fella put his hand into that Tupperware. And he went flying backwards at least 10 feet as literally all his muscles expanded from the shock. He just flew backwards. And he landed, and he was cursing in at least 3 languages. That was amazing. He just started cursing in at least 3 languages. And he looks up at me and goes, I have been stabbed. I have been shot. And I have never felt pain. And I've never felt pain like that before.
Wow.
This is not a fish you want to mess with.
I've been hit by big electric eels. I had a 5-foot electric eel, and he got me once.
I bet that tossed you.
It did. It shocked me.
Yeah.
I was a little taken aback by that. I didn't believe it. I thought it must have been a heater that was broken, because that's what it felt like. It felt like 110 volts going through me.
Oh, when I got no, I've had heaters that were leaking. You put your hand in, you get that tingle. Or do you remember the old stainless steel light fixtures?
Oh yeah,
That zap you every time.
yeah, you bet. Put your
If you
finger on that.
yeah,
Yeah, they were raw. They were.
yeah, you put a little salt in the water because you thought that was a good thing to do. That's all it took. And you touch
That's
those old
right. Yeah.
stainless light fixtures, and you discoed. But no, the electric catfish, it's got its electrodes right in its mouth, and it just hits you 100%. You just go flying. First time he nailed me, he had a habit. He didn't want to be watched. So he took all the gravel and he built a wall along the front of
Oh,
the
that's
cart.
funny.
He just took all the gravel, just moved it up, and made a wall so we couldn't see him. And of course, that's not tolerable. So I'd reach in and I'd put the gravel back.
Right.
He would hide in his cave. Electric catfish love caves. If we're going to do one, make sure there's a cave.
All catfish love caves.
Yep. And so I'm putting the gravel back, and he's just watching me. And then I looked away for half a second, and he just bang. That was it. He was mad, and that was a shocking experience.
Really?
Electric fish, they're a lot of fun, folks. They really are. Handled with care, but they're a lot of fun.
Kevin Rosenberg. Hello, hello.
We have any questions from the?
Yeah, I haven't seen any. They're just kind of having a conversation that's more or less following our conversation.
Anybody have any particular catfish they want us to talk about? Something they're interested in?
Let's see. Dooby-doo.
Well, while you're doing that, worst catfish of all time, bumblebee catfish. That is a beautiful fish that you will never see. You put it in the aquarium and it literally dissolves into the water, and you won't see it again until you drain the tank.
There are a lot of catfish like that. Particularly if you've got any kind of hide, they love to go into caves. Some of them will even burrow.
Banjo catfish, for example, yeah, they'll go in. But yeah,
Banjos, you never see a banjo. That's true.
They'll come out for food, though. Banjos will come out for food. That's most catfish you'll see in feeding time. Woodcats is another one that they'll literally hunt.
Yeah, woodcats, that's right. Amanda is saying, hi, Father Fish, good news. One of the immature female clown killifish has turned out to be male. He's coloring up very well and is starting to court my females. She had like half a dozen and thought they were all females. So now she's got a male. That's good news.
Your killifish will usually take between, depending on the species, 1 month to a year. Your Nothobronchius will color up in about 3 weeks, depending which ones. Your Aphyosemians and Fungilopanchecs, usually in a month, you get month to 6 weeks, you'll have a pretty good idea. Some of the Epipleiades will take probably up to 3 months, maybe sooner. Lamp-eyes are a bear. They can take a year before you get color on them. I mean, they just take forever. But that's not an annual fish. That's a fish that lives a long, long time.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, so there are some, it depends on what you're looking at. The trick when you get them juvenile is get yourself a bright flashlight.
Right.
And you'll see the colors in the fins, usually before it's on the body. Yep. Nice bright flashlight. And you'll sometimes see the colors on the fins. But if you're buying juvenile killers, you buy a 6-pack and you hope.
Right.
That's pretty much it. Get a 6-pack, and odds are pretty good you'll get a male in the group or a female in the group. Now, rivula species, they're going to screw with you because they sex up based on the temperature they were bred in. If you breed them at the wrong temperature, typically too warm, you'll get all males. If you breed them at the right temperature, around 70 degrees is a pretty good temperature, which is hard for some people to keep in their house. But if you have them around 70, 72 degrees, you get a 50-50 mix. So if you're buying some of the ribs, you're going to unfortunately have a very good chance, if you get them all from the same breeder, that you'll get all the same sex. So those you really want to buy are sexed out already. You know, you don't want to get a 6-pack of those if you can avoid it. They'd be the small rivulas. The big ones aren't as bad, though. You know, they've actually been broken up into new subspecies. Oh, Jesus Christ! I don't. What are the small rivulas? Something simians. They've been broken up. The Madia, Agile, all the little ribs have got into a new classification with the Ziphidius, I believe, and the big rivulus have been split.
Right.
They're all the same thing. There's little ones and big ones. Just like the, big and little Wallachia, they look a lot alike. Just go by what they look like. You know, it was easier in the old days before everybody had to write a PhD thesis. You know, that's basically what happened. Everybody wants to write a PhD thesis and rename fish.
Yeah, I know.
So every day we look into it, and someone's renamed our favorite fish. If you're into oddball fish,
it's true. Panchaks.
Panchaks. That was simple, yeah. Yeah, they were Panchaks for a while, and then all of a sudden everything got broken up.
Don't ghost fish and other night fish use electricity to some degree, other than how sharks and others use electromagnetic currents to navigate? Yeah, that's the lateral line.
Well, it's actually even when you think about an electric eel, there are probably people confused by the name. An electric eel is a humongous knife fish. It really is a knife fish. There's no other way to look at the thing. And it's electric. And the smaller knife fish are also electric. You also apparently have, I think, was it elephant nose, whales,
right.
The freshwater variety. They're electric fish. They have impulses. But probably all of the South American knife fish species are probably, that leaf shape have some electrical impulses, not anywhere nearly as developed as the electric eel. So the answer is yeah, absolutely. They're electric fish, but they won't hurt you.
Right. They use that mainly to detect what's around them. Here's a good example of that is the abba, the Gymnarchus melodicus. It's from Egypt, from North Africa.
Yep.
And lives in very muddy water that you can't see an inch into. Rivers, the Nile River is a muddy river. There's no visibility in the Nile River, and these fish live in that. Well, they have no eyes. They've got little spots. I don't know if they can even detect light. Yeah, I've had them, and it doesn't look like it, but they're highly sensitive through this sensory organ that runs both sides of the length of their body, called a lateral line.
Yeah, I was slamming my head into the wall about 2 years ago. I went into a local pet store. They had 2 of those abbas that were only 3 inches long, and they were like $5 a piece.
Babies, yeah.
Yeah, and I looked at those, and they were beautiful. They were in
They're such a cool fish.
And well, I can deal with that, but I can't deal with the fact that they get 3 feet long or more.
Well, that's right. They're pretty slow growing, though. I got one at that size once. I grew it up to about 18 inches, and that took 2 to 3 years.
It's still a big fish pretty quick, and for someone who's got mainly set up for small tanks and
Well,
killies.
that's true. I had it in a 55, and it was doing really well. But I filled the tank once, right to the brim. I walked away from the hose. When I came back, it was sitting on the lanai, so it didn't hurt anything, but the water was overflowing. So I took the hose out and just went about my business. Well, the fish, while it didn't jump, it came right to the top and it rolled over out of the tank onto indoor-outdoor carpeting, which is very coarse and rigid carpeting. And it was sitting there doing this. Well, it's an air breather, so it could live a long time out of water, but it tore its belly up on that indoor-outdoor carpeting. And I couldn't save it.
Yeah, I remember that. I still have it in, I think, well, my father's house has it, and we've covered it with other carpeting over the years because it's really a good carpet mat. It's better as a mat than it was as a carpet. It was basically just shredded nylon that.
It's plastic. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a tough plastic.
But it's rigid. Yeah.
It's rigid, and it's like those scrubbers. It's
that's exactly right.
Made out of scrubber. It was popular back in the 60s, and there was a lot of people who were frugal, who went out and said,
"I want something cheap."
It was dirt
clean. Yeah, easy to clean. You could hose it down.
Came in generally dark colors, blue, green. That.
Right.
And I mean, I haven't seen it in years.
Lost my favorite fish of that stuff.
It was they were both beautiful, and I was crying that I couldn't take them home. I mean, the price was dirt.
That really is cheap because they're a lot more expensive than that typically.
I don't know why they were so inexpensive, but they were literally in a little tank as you walked into the store. As kind of promotional thing or whatever, and there was 2 of them, and I'm looking at it going, "Wow, look at that!" I called my daughter over and said,
"Yeah, you cannot ship them with each other. You can't ship a bag of babies because they kill each other. You put 2 babies together, and in about an hour there'll be one dead one."
Well, same thing with electric catfish. I saw at a pet store. They opened up a bag of baby electric catfish, and they were all half fried.
Right.
So, I mean, they literally just electrocuted everything that
killed each other. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's and they're also from the same region. They're also from the Nile area. Electric catfish. That's another Egyptian fish.
Are they?
Yeah. But also tiny little eyes. And they don't really need them. By the time mine was 19 years old, it was cataracts and blind. But it was still perfectly able to catch its food. The other odd thing was it would generally never eat all of its food. It would leave one goldfish or one whatever in the tank with it so it had company. The downside is when you fed it more goldfish, it couldn't tell them apart and would just eat all but one goldfish. It would be a different goldfish after that. But it never ate the last goldfish.
First class fish is saying he loves Synodontis. He's typing Cynosantis. I'm sure he means Synodontis.
Beautiful fish. Loved them, collected them. I had the Angelicus, the black with white spots. I had the Jaguar variety. When that first came out, one of them came in as an odd import. It was like kind of psychedelic, green, brown, black, gorgeous fish. Pet store, I found them and had them in with red belly piranhas. I know. I walked in, I'm looking at I didn't even ask. Just let me have one that has all of its parts.
Yeah, right.
But they were not expensive because they were just an oddball import.
Yeah.
Sometimes in the old days you'd get these oddball imports. You know,
Cheap.
they wouldn't even know what they had.
Well, that's the way they came in too. They wouldn't come in as something exclusive. They would come in as essentially a trash fish. This is something we caught. We don't know what it is. We'll give it to you or sell it cheap.
Years ago, you got a pistogramas that way. Two guys used to carry pistos every now and then, beautiful, unusual pistos.
Didn't know what they were. Yeah.
They just have a tank full of them, and they label something, you know, give them some kind of a silly name.
Yeah, some collector brought a bag of these things. We had never seen them before, and we don't know what to do with them, but we'll sell them to you cheap. Today we've got this rare and endangered new species that we were able to get by paying vast amounts of money.
Yep, and then two guys used to have them for 89 cents a piece. Hell yeah.
I know.
Those are the days.
Kevin says, I love my whiptail catfish.
Oh, loricarias. Yeah, they're fun.
Lories, yeah. They are cool. Andres Ryan at Bioaquatics breeds them.
Yep.
He's got a couple of species.
The big one, the Royal Farwellas. Those are
Farlowella, yeah.
Oh, Farlowellas, yeah.
Farlowella.
Yeah, those are gorgeous. That's a beautiful fish. They're not the best algae eaters in the world. Judging, from the side,
I remember I had some. I guess it was in Florida, not here.
Yeah, I mean, they're good. They eat algae. Don't get me wrong, but they'll also eat anything else you put in. They're a flake food eater to some degree. But you're not going to get the kind of bang for your buck that you get from like a Gara pingy or a few of the plecos, or they're actually technically algae eaters, Chinese or other one.
Elephant nose and brown ghost. Yeah, nice fish, really. I had a deal with a university lab. Can't remember which one. Yale, I think. I think it was Yale University. I sold them a dozen elephant nose a month. And they were using them in research. They were studying the lateral line, the electrical impulse of the lateral line. So I got them into abba-abbas, which are harder to get, of course, and harder to keep. That was an interesting project.
By the way,
I don't know how many I sold them. About 300, I think. That went on for about a year.
By the way, if you've never seen an amba, it's an upside-down knifefish.
They're wonderful. They're shaped like a torpedo.
Mm-hmm.
They have a blunt nose. They look like a submarine with a blunt nose and a tail that comes to a point. They have one fin they've got three. They have a dorsal fin that runs the entire length of the body. And then two little tiny paddlefish.
Yep.
Paddle fins, rather.
Yeah, it's like a knifefish, except they're upside down. They're
dorsal. Round. They're perfectly round. Yeah. Super fish. Really neat fish.
Yeah, like I said, I cried when I looked at him, and it's like, oh man, if I just had, 125 or something set up at the time, that would have been nice.
Yeah, really.
It's not a fish you want to do anything.
Yes, we are live streaming right now. We're live streaming on 5 different channels.
It's a nice knifefish, being kind of rambling. The African knifefish. Unlike the South Americans, the Africans got a lot of personality. It has no dorsal fin.
Right. Yeah, I'm just trying to think that kind of opened the door to the arowana, the Asian arowana, the barramundi, the red arowana, the silver, and the black.
Black, I remember.
They're all over. It's a species of fish that's found all over the world.
Mostly banned in the United States. All the Asian ones are. That's why
the Asians are banned. Yeah. Well, the red. Yeah, I guess all the Asians. The barramundi is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The red is. Yeah.
Is the black still available?
No. Well, I don't know. It's banned in Florida. The only one you can get in Florida is the silver. And of course, they're all bred in captivity now. And the red, which is a remarkable fish, is it's extinct in the wild.
I think I may have seen a red when I was probably around 12 years old, not since. And I had a black back.
Yeah, they're illegal in the U.S., which is, there's no point to that because, number one, they cost a minimum of $5,000. Number two, they're all chipped. They all have chips in them. They're bred in captivity. There's absolutely no point to them being banned.
Well, I think they can live in colder water. I think they go with like snakeheads, where they can live up to Maryland and anything that can invade Washington.
Well, that would be wonderful. I mean, imagine a fish like that. I've always said that what's the Arapima?
Yeah.
If there's one fish that I would support as an invasive species, it would be the Arapima.
You might have your wish.
Pardon?
You might have your wish. There was a farm that was raising them that got flooded, so they may be loose.
I heard that that there have been one or two that have been found dead or caught.
They may have gotten loose because
I know there was a farm. That's true.
Yeah, a friend of mine was working for that. There was the branch of that here in New Jersey, where they had Arapimas up here in New Jersey too. And apparently the project turned very bad before he left. He's not working there anymore, but he said they lost most of the fish, and the Florida farm had gotten caught in a flood. So that was a problem. Again, I don't know the details or anything, but if the farm got caught in a flood, some of them may have gotten out. And, so I don't think the project's dead now. But Rosario told me those. He told me those things were delicious. Because I asked him, it was one of those
I've heard
things.
that. Well, they're a delicacy in hotels and where are they from? Brazil, I guess.
Yeah, Brazil. They're an Amazon species, and it was funny because I went to ask Rosario about the fish. I said, "Do you know anything about Arapimas?" He looked at me and says, "Yeah, they're delicious."
Right. Oh, here's one. Oddball fish. The paddlefish. Not a catfish. It's found in two places, one of which is probably extinct. That's the Yangtze River. And it's extinct by virtue of the dam.
Okay. Now I know the fish you're talking about. It took me a while.
It's also found in the Mississippi and is raised in captivity. They get up to about 4 foot, I think. They are a filter feeder. They look for all the world like a basking shark with a big sternum nose, great huge paddle. I had a couple of them once. I kept them in a big vat, and they did really well. Some guy talked me out of them, and I shipped them to him, and I think I shipped them in too small a bag or something, and my recollection is they didn't make it. But they were a lot of fun.
Yeah, well, I did sturgeon once. Not that I had it that long, but I couldn't
Yeah,
help
I've had them, but I've never been able to keep them more than a week tops.
Yeah, no, I had them a little longer than that, but it needs a high protein diet. It wants a lot of current. It's a river fish or something of that nature, and they grow fast. I mean, I had mine probably a couple months at best. It feels like it was shorter than that, but it's kind of scoots along the bottom like a catfish. It looks like a shark with that
Some of
tail.
them get really big. I mean, they
They
can
all
get a couple of 100 pounds. Real big fish.
It's
There's a Gulf of Mexico species, a saltwater species, that was raised in captivity as a food fish for a while by Moat Marine Research Facility. They had they set up an aquatic research facility as a part of that. They were raising them. They were selling roe and fish.
Well, you know something? It was probably in the mid '80s when those little sturgeons all of a sudden became available to the hobby. So someone was breeding them.
Yeah, they were coming out of the north.
Were they?
Yeah. They were not doing well. They wanted cold water.
Yeah, okay, that's probably where we all screwed up too. They probably wanted more cold water.
Yeah.
But as a kid, I always
they're like a stickleback. You can't keep them in warm water.
Or perch.
They won't live. Yeah, or a yellow perch, right?
Yellow perch is another fish you'll never get home from the pond in a bucket.
Yeah.
By the time you get it home, it's dead because the temperature went up.
Pretty fish too.
And if you know how to fish for them, I knew guys who used to go up and they would pull up dozens of them. You just find the deepest spot.
It's a wonderful eating fish, much better than the white perch.
Did you ever try cleaning one?
As a kid, I don't remember. Yeah, they have big, thick scales. So
fly everywhere. You clean a perch, you have more scales on you than the fish did. By the time
they pop off. Yeah,
they just pop off. Now that was a horror fish to clean. But for people who know how to fish for them, they go to the certain depth in the lake, and that's where they just pull them up by the hundreds. You ever see them do a spawning run?
No.
They kind of leap out of the water. All hundreds of them in a giant swarm. They'll come up to the top and they just leap out of the water, and that's how they spawn.
Huh.
It happens in early spring when the water's still cool near the top.
Nice.
And I was out. I only saw it once in my life. I'm just rowing along, and I looked out.
Where was that?
It was up in North Jersey, up in Lake Erie.
Really?
Place. And there was hundreds of them. And the thing is, unless you fished the deep water, you never knew there was a perch in the lake.
Wow.
You had to go to the deeper section of the lake, and down there you could bring them up by the hundreds. The guys who you put them on worms, and there'd be guys with bamboo poles, the old time Russian guys from lived up there. They'd come down with 10 bamboo poles that were made out of old carpet rods.
Oh my!
And they would stick them all over around their boat, and they just put them to the bottom, and and then they just pull up perch one after the other as soon as they saw it.
Amanda says, I was at Petco the other day. They had something they called a golden dream killifish. It was real pretty. It sounds like golden top minnow.
Gold wonder.
Golden, it sounds like golden wonder. She's calling it a golden dream killie. Probably a golden wonder.
Yeah, it's an epiplatus species. Epiplatus. Oh, jeez. Will come to me sooner or later.
They are pretty common fish.
It's
the fungulus. I think the fungulus is prettier. Very underrated fish.
It is. But you know something? I had epiplatus, and they're prolific as hell. You get them, you'll have millions of them. They'll lay eggs all over your plants. If you move your plants around your fish room, babies will hatch everywhere. It's a tough little fish, and they jump. Those suckers, if you don't have a cover on the tank, you'll have fish on the floor 100% of the time. They will jump from aquarium to aquarium. I had lids on all my tanks, and they were somehow leaping around. So I had a green. Oh God, it was a green one. It was all green, and it was. Someone gave it to me and said, "Here, I'm moving. You can have these." They were pretty, and then all of a sudden they were everywhere. But the golden one.
Amazing, yeah.
Gladys.
Amanda, does anyone know if my trapdoor snails will eat my clown killifish eggs?
No, they won't. The giant Japanese pond snails, they don't eat eggs. If you have any, yes.
That's a shocker.
That is, the giant Japanese pond snail, which is one of the more common of the trapdoors, the big ones. It's a big one. It would be the giant Japs. They are phenomenal fish for egg-laid species. They really don't eat eggs. They eat algae. That's literally what they want to eat. Mystery snails will eat eggs. God forbid you put Malaysian trumpet snails in. They hunt eggs.
Yeah.
There will be no eggs left in the tank. 100% guaranteed. Pond snails will eat eggs. But the trapdoor, I used to have them in all my breeding tanks. Never had an issue.
No kidding.
Yeah, they're perfectly fine with eggs.
First class fish. I want to have an elephant nose again. I remember them being common. I've heard they aren't so common. They're a wild caught fish.
Right.
And like as with any wild caught fish, you have to have an accessible population and somebody interested in going out and getting them. And,
species. Things in Africa are always funky. You get a lot of cool fish from Sierra Leone when they're not killing each other as far as humans go. And then all of a sudden they'll get back to, feuding with one another, and then you won't see any fish from that country for a long time.
Right.
It's there are some species in Africa that are literally only available when people who are crazy enough to go into the tsetse fly area who are willing to go out and collect them.
Killies particularly.
Yeah. You got to be kind of nuts to go into some of the areas where some of these fish live.
Butterfly fish. That is a really cool fish. There are a couple of. There's an African species that is called butterfly, but it's not like the South American. The South American looks like a butterfly. It's really a very cool little fish.
The African looks like a butterfly too. It's got the big horizontal wings.
One of them is not what it's. Maybe I've got them backwards.
It's got like feelers on the bottom and big horizontal wings. That's
yeah, right. Is that the African? I thought it was South American.
I'm pretty sure it's African.
Okay. I don't know.
But
we'll look it up.
What you want to do is, if you're going to keep those, you want to do a mealworm culture.
Yeah, they like insects. Yeah, that's right.
That's what's going to do.
They also are jumpers.
Oh yeah, any top species is going to be a jumper. They're going to go out quick. But if you got to have a good lid on the tank, and they won't go nuts for little nicks and crannies like killies will. But they'll get, if you don't have a top on, they'll be on the floor.
Right.
But you want to feed them mealworms, and get yourself a gallon jug. Throw about 2 inches of oatmeal in. Cut a raw potato in half. Drop it in. And then just throw some mealworms in, and you'll have plenty of mealworms to feed your African butterfly fish. Basically, it's a really easy way to culture mealworms. They eat potatoes and live in oatmeal, and they breed pretty prolifically, well enough to keep a couple butterfly fish for a culture or two.
Horizon says to Luke, what do I have to do to breed a mono shrimp? you have to you have to you have to create an environment where they can get into brackish water, lay their eggs, and then get back out of it. Also, where the babies, as they grow, are able to come out of it. Nobody's doing it because it's damn near impossible.
Yeah, no, it's not. I've seen it done. People will hatch them, but then they die because the babies need
Yeah, that's
salt water.
exactly right. Yeah.
You know,
The babies have to have salt water,
yeah,
or brackish water at least. But then they can't live in it long term. Once they're a couple of months old, they got to be able to come up into fresh water. So they live in that. There are a lot of fish that live. Puffers are another one. Though they'll live in creeks that feed into saltwater bays, typically.
monos.
Yeah, manus are another one. Right. The adults will mature in fresh water. They'll egg up. They'll swim down into brackish water, lay their eggs. Eels are another one. Then
Eels,
they
yeah,
come back up into fresh water.
or vice versa.
As
There's
little ones.
something like salmon go upstream.
Salmon are just the opposite. That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it depends on what you have to understand is that marine water has an incredible diversity of microfauna.
That's exactly right.
More
The
so
top inch of the ocean is so thick with microfauna that there are countless species that lay their eggs on the surface or floating eggs so that the babies are immediately in that top 1 inch of water.
Yep, and the thing about it is because there is so much microfauna. If you're a species that has tiny little bitty fry, that's a great place for them to feed versus up in a stream where there's going to be clear water and not much to eat.
Right.
But if you've got big fry, you want to hatch them in the stream where there's no predators to eat them as they come downstream and get bigger. So that's that I guess it's just the strategy, whether you're a salmon or a mono shrimp.
Do it, Luke. Just do it. Just put her in brackish water. Let her drop the eggs. They'll hatch, actually. They'll hatch still attached to her, still on the swimmers. And then they'll just begin to kind of peel off as babies. Then get her out of there. But the babies are not going to live in there more than a couple of months.
Yeah, you can just then slowly move them over to fresh. I mean, as you go. I mean,
right. Good luck with that. Right.
It's been done, but I don't know. I've never read a good breeding report on it. I mean, I'm sure there's something.
Exactly. I'm sure it's doable. It's like a lot of other things. It takes figuring out precisely the steps that are involved. And sometimes, you get one thing in front of another. You have to keep trying it over and over again until you get the sequence right. And then it'll click and you can do it every time. But it might take you years to get there.
Yeah, it's in the end, it's a cookbook recipe, but until you know what goes into what the ingredients are and what the times are and whatever, usually what happens is some screw up does it wrong and gets it right.
Yeah, exactly.
8 times out of 10, you see that.
That's right.
Some 10-year-old girl has got nearite snails reproducing, and you look at that and you go, "But how?
How are they doing?" Right. Well, they got sick and I put salt in.
Yeah, I just put a lot of salt in and look what happened, or whatever the magic ingredient is.
I thought my logs were rotten. Well, the white spot, my logs had ick.
Yeah,
I put salt in to cure the ick.
And look, I got Murite nails. Look at, how much salt did you put in? What kind of salt? Let's figure it out.
Right. Oh, I don't know. It was on the kitchen table. I just dumped it in.
And yep, exactly. And that's,
The code. The code. What is the code?
Can I bring my hydrometer over? Yeah, that's pretty much where you're
at. Right.
Well, there was a renowned Killy person for years who used to sell pairs of Rivulus Ophidius. And in his house, he had a 50-gallon tank of all male Rivulus Ophidius.
Huh.
And once a year, he would bag up about maybe 50 or 100 of them. And he would ship them to California and get a bag of females back from someone in California. Huh. And because the other fella got all females and he got all males.
Oh, that's funny.
And both of these guys were keeping them going. And I asked him, I said, how do you breed them? So this is what I do. He tells me all about it. And then another friend of mine who'd been at his house walks over, taps me on the shoulder and says, it doesn't work. It gives you all males. He gets all his females from California.
That's funny.
So he, back then they didn't know the secret was temperature. Obviously, someone in California had different temperature.
Right.
And this guy's got his temperature. He gets all males, and they never figured it out that they worked for the two of them.
Yeah.
And he was always selling a fish nobody else could do.
Right. What do you have there? What is that?
This?
That bag. Yeah.
Oh, cigarette makings.
What is it?
Tobacco, cigarette stuffing.
Oh, it's makings. Oh, okay. Yeah. You roll your own, do you?
I have a machine.
Oh, I see. Far out.
Well, these days, you got to have skills to survive. Otherwise,
it's become prohibitively expensive to smoke.
Yes, they have.
Yeah.
Yes, they have. It's I'm not advertising that the savings involved, but there's a bit of savings, and if you don't smoke, don't start, kids.
Really? Yeah. You ever grow your own tobacco?
Not in New Jersey, but my grandfather tried it in Germany, apparently. My mother told me the story of him trying to grow his own tobacco in Germany, so I suppose it's doable.
I grew up on a tobacco farm in Maryland.
Did you?
Well, I didn't grow up on it. My parents were friends with a farmer and his family. They had 3 kids too, and they raised, I don't know how many acres, like 20 acres of tobacco.
Yeah,
hard work.
I've seen it. I've seen videos of it being done years ago, but I don't know if you can do it as far north as New Jersey. I think it's more of a
southern crop, yeah. Maryland and point south. Very few farms do it anymore. It's a lot of work, and it's handwork. It's not anything you can do by machine.
Oh, okay, yeah. That's, I imagine, makes it more scarce.
And it's very messy. It's really dirty because the leaves, which have to be broken off individually, are full of sap. And that sap is sticky and smelly and prolific.
Well, I worked in a division of Kimberly-Clark years and years ago, Schweitzer's. And it was the place they made toasted tobacco. And toasted tobacco was a fascinating product. It was Lucky Strikes. If you ever saw it, it's toasted.
Right. That's right.
And it never had grade A tobacco anywhere on the package. What they would do, they got bales of roots and stems, just bales of them.
Huh.
Then they would dissolve them in acid and turn it into a slurry.
Honestly.
And then they ran an 80-foot tall wheel through that, and the slurry would dry on the wheel, and then it would be peeled off on the side and ground up, and then it would get stuffed into the various brands of cigarettes.
Hello, E. Who is this?
I like your channel, so I'm gonna your channel's awesome, but for me,
What?
your channel is awesome.
Well, thank you. Do you have a camera?
Sorry, but my channel's almost dying. It's around 5%.
Where are you
Okay.
from? Where are you from? What country are you from?
What country are you from?
I'm from the U.S.
Okay, bye.
He's muted. Okay. We had a guest. We had a visitor.
I think I just killed myself. What happened?
No, I hear you.
Oh, let's see. I just kicked him out.
Oh well. It was nice to have a visitor stop in.
I suppose.
You know, it's nice to have fans.
Right. I didn't see him in the chat anywhere. And I'm usually leery of that. If somebody is not in the chat and they want to come up live, and I don't recognize the name, normally I won't even let them up. And that's why. I mean, it could have been anything.
Well, you know something. First of all, it's entertainment value, if nothing else. Neither you or I are likely to get offended.
Yeah, right.
But as far as I guess YouTube might, so we have to have some care. But the other thing we really should do is kind of organize this. For those people who don't know what happens behind the scenes, we kind of log on at random, or I'll get a message, hey, going to do a live stream. I'll just kind of pop on. And my first question is, what are we going to talk about? You know, so as to get some idea of where we're going to start. And we go from there while we try to figure out how our microphones work or how our video is working. And then you guys get to see us messing around. And Luke behind the scenes, wherever you are, Luke, God bless you. You're a miracle worker. He's the engineer behind this madness. So thank you, Luke. And we just kind of wing it on the fly. So whatever you see is what you get. Anything can happen.
This is
What has happened?
somebody was trying to join, and they
Okay.
didn't even have a name, just an icon. So I rejected it.
Guys, you must have a name.
You know, if you want to come up, anybody I know, anybody that's in the chat, anybody who's been active with us heretofore is welcome to join us. If you're somebody I don't know, I'm not going to welcome you in because I have no good reason to. If you want to comment in the chat and give people a chance to get to know you, then that's fine. You certainly can do that. If you're just going to be a jerk or a troublemaker, go somewhere else because I'm not interested.
Well, it's not like I said. I don't mind being entertained by jerks and troublemakers, but YouTube has rules, so we kind of have to make sure that we don't do something that's going to get Father Fish demonetized.
Luke, what's happening with this sound? I'm getting a lot of static. Fletcher Patch, do you have any tanks with Caridina shrimp? Now, I do not yet, but I will shortly.
I
There are
did.
2 people who want to join the meeting. View lobby.
I did the
Where's
first
Luke?
copy years ago.
Master. Who is Master? Hey, Luke.
Hello.
Hey,
Hi there.
so there's 2 EJs for me again. That's pretty funny.
Should be one RJ, but I didn't see
RJ.
VJ.
I'm
Okay,
assuming
right.
you're getting some sort of feedback because I don't hear it here. You must have the stream open, maybe, or
It stopped, whatever it was.
did it?
Yeah.
Okay, well, it's fixed. I fixed it. All I had to do was show up.
You scared it off.
Master is inviting you to a meeting. Want to join the meeting. Master. No idea who that is. I've not seen anything like Master in the
Just
chat.
I would just hit reject. Somebody is,
Right, I think so too.
yeah. Somebody needs some slapping. So you don't think that amount of shrimp is gonna happen, huh?
Well, the babies are born in brackish water, but the adults cannot live in brackish water.
Almost
So I don't
pure
know
salt.
exactly how that works.
No, they can live in salt water for a while, but you want to bring them out because they're more useful in flesh. But
Do you hear that, Luke?
I do hear that. EJ, are you hearing that?
yeah, here's some echo coming from somewhere.
It's
Well, we're
not an
getting
echo.
Static, like somebody's got the microphone.
Father
in there.
Fish wants to join the meeting. Now, what in the world is that?
Somebody typed in Father Fish in the, the
That's
thing.
true, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
So we'll kill that one since Father Fish is already here.
I hope so.
I'm just looking here trying to see.
It just started when somebody tried to get up. Tried to get up, and I'm just.
Are you bumping the microphone or anything?
No.
Sitting perfectly still.
That's what it sounds like, doesn't it?
It does, but it sounds like it may be on EJ's end. Where's your
Yeah.
microphone at?
It's on my desk.
Is it touching something?
It's sitting on the desk. It's not levitating in the air.
Is it rubbing on a bag or anything next to it?
Is it doing it now at this moment?
It just a little
Intermittently.
bit.
Let me
It
mute
almost,
you.
Yeah, it almost sounds
I'm going to
like,
mute you a minute. See if
It
that
almost
stops
sounds
it.
like something's touching your microphone, like the base of it or something. It's not doing
I
it
don't
now.
hear it now. Let's see.
Yeah, it's definitely on RJ's side. You know, it's all because we had that conversation about the $12 microphone you had that
Right.
for earlier.
Luke, are you? He's still muted.
Yeah, you gotta unmute him.
Are you on? Say something, Luke. I mean,
I can hear you.
RJ, he's.
You still got him muted, and I don't have moderator rights.
Yeah, and I'm wondering why.
You just click those 3 dots up there next to him, and then
I did that.
click the 3 dots next to his name. I'll hover over his icon there on the side.
Ask to unmute.
Yep.
Oh, he's got himself muted.
Well, now that there you
No,
go.
I'm not.
Yep.
There,
you go.
we got him now.
Back.
Okay.
It was weird because when you unmuted me, my little thing came up on my end muted. So, technology is great.
Wiggle your cord or something. It really sounds like you're getting like something funny going on.
Yeah, that's it.
Is that better?
That might have done it.
Is that better?
Yeah,
I
I'm not
think
hearing
so.
any feedback now. Was your
Oh.
phone next to the microphone?
Who?
My what?
Was your cell phone next to the microphone by chance?
No, I don't. No, I don't have a cell phone. But before, no, there's someone talking on the cell phone a little ways away, but it's a wired mic.
Oh, I
It's
thought
cleared up.
Yeah,
It
went
was
away
the
with
wire.
the microphone.
Yeah, it was the connector. I just jingled the connector where it goes into the computer. So that happens. You know.
$12. How many years ago did you get that mic?
No. It's $1. It was at $1. It's a $1 microphone that I got 20 years ago.
Oh my gosh! Well, $1 20 years ago, that's like a $300 microphone.
Really?
Yeah, really. And if you look at the wire, let me see if I can get it in the camera. Let's get it to focus. There we go against the beard. That's where the rats ate through it.
Oh, Kenny is here.
Oh, and see, he's over here like,
Honest
no,
to
it couldn't
God.
be my microphone.
So it's no. That I did. I soldered that myself. I was micro soldered because it's literally that micro thread.
Yeah.
You know, it's
just got like a thin hair wire.
Yeah, it's just a couple hairs together, and that was a real project, micro soldering it. But I wasn't going to go out and buy another $1 microphone.
Matt wants to know if we breed in dirted tanks. It's worse than that, Matt. It goes way beyond dirted tanks.
No, we don't breed in dirty tanks, but our fish do.
That's true, actually, isn't it?
Right.
I don't want to go there. I don't want to.
It's not.
Let's not go there.
That's as far as it should go. But
food web. The key is food web. A food web is a rich microfauna and microflora environment in which typically leaves or other humic material. Your father fish is back trying to get in which humic material is put in the tank in order to generate a rich microculture. That then becomes the cornerstone of baby fish being able to feed. When you have that kind of environment, well, the small fish will naturally breed in that environment because the food is available for their babies.
Yeah, it's if you are breeding for profit, you're going to do a lot of fish. Then you're going to use synthetic measures, or you're going to use synthetic sponges. You're going to use guppy grass. You're going to do a lot of water changes. You're breeding in volume, and in order to get that kind of insane volume, you're going to have to break all the rules of nature, because in nature it just won't work. But if you have a species of fish that's going to be kind of a pain in the hind quarters, and you're not trying to grow 1 million of them, then you want to create as natural an environment as possible for them. You want to do an environment where they're going to get their microfauna. They're going to have plants, live plants of various varieties. They're going to have leafy type material. So when I get a fish that I've never done before, I get a weird fish I've never done before, I will often take an aquarium and I'll just pack it full of Java moss and floating, Ricky, and I'll throw the fish in there, and that's it. And something will often happen.
So I should be going. So it's probably not too late for me to go to like a pond or something and grab a cup of mud, basically, right?
No, it's really never too late, because if you're whatever's living in your pond is going to be either in spore, egg, or active form.
A pond or a lake?
Same
Lake.
difference.
Okay.
Basically, same difference.
Like I don't really have any ponds per se.
Go for something clean. Try to pick something that's that's been long established, reasonably clean.
Well, any lake is going to be okay because it's just big open water.
Yeah, and then I would try to shoot for don't get like buckets full of material. You're going to get bad stuff there. Okay, handful of leaves. Put them in a jar. See what falls out of them or hatches when warm it up to room temperature in case there's eggs there that are overwintering. And then basically put that in your aquarium once you figure it's pretty safe.
If you make me a moderator, I can deal with that. By the way.
I'll do that. I think the same person over and over is trying to get in, but the problem is they're not identifying themselves.
Yeah. Well, I'll check it out, and I'll.
If it's anybody who's in the chat, anybody who is known to me is welcome to come up. If I don't know who you are, if you're putting some silly name in, you're not going to get approved.
I'll just drag them into a breakout room and see who it is.
Go for
it. Not a big deal.
We just lost RJ.
RJ said he'd be right back. But no, I was thinking so that little 10-gallon is doing, it seems like it's doing pretty well. I've taken, now that things have slowed down and there's not excessive growth going on, I assume it's not got excess nutrients and stuff in there. So I started pulling out some of the guppy grass and whatnot, just because I don't think it really, I pulled out a lot of the duckweed, probably half of the duckweed, and I pulled out maybe a third of the guppy grass. And I'm letting the other, because I don't want it to choke out the other plants that are in there.
Right.
And that's kind of what was happening. The duckweed was covering up the majority of the light, so that was preventing growth on other things.
Yeah.
So, but I want to get something going because I got to thinking, there's not really anything that would be in there to give bacteria or
don't do mud. Try to find some detritus. Try to find an area where there's some leaves piled up. This is a perfect time of year to do it.
Yeah.
But if those leaves have been in there even a week, they're going to have a lot of microscopic life on them, a lot of bacteria and fungus as well. So that's going to be most beneficial.
There was a video, I don't know if you see my comment about it earlier, but there's a video of a guy that said he was doing the deep substrate method, but he was using compost.
Yeah.
And it didn't seem to go well. He had a lot of algae, and
it was probably too thick, and his cap was too thin, very likely.
Yeah, and then so I don't know. He's a pretty popular YouTuber, and I can't remember his name. He said he did the Wallstead method, but it didn't look like that's what he did exactly to me. But he had I think he said after a few weeks or so, he had pretty heavy sulfur smell coming out of the tank.
Yep.
He didn't have it capped. It probably was 2 to 3 inches deep dirt with an inch or so of sand. And that's a recipe for disaster.
In the video, I couldn't even tell that he had sand. That was kind of the weird thing. So.
Oh, well, maybe he didn't.
That's true.
Wallstead doesn't do sand. Wallstead does gravel, if anything.
One of the problems that you get with to building a natural aquarium is that when we go out to nature, we all have different nature. My dirt, some people can go literally into their backyard and dig up some dirt, throw it in an aquarium, and that's going to work a treat. But I've lived in a couple different places, and I know some places I lived, if I put a shovel in the ground, I came up with nothing but sand. I know a place I lived up in the forest, and if I put a shovel in the ground, I came up with black, rich earth. Okay,
Yeah, right.
that was literally compacted leaves.
That's humans, right?
Other places, you put a shovel in the ground, you come up with clay, literally clay. I mean, I've lived in at least one place where I was able, as a kid, and I molded the clay. I dug it out, and I sat there and I molded it.
Right.
And you can put it in an oven kiln and baked it. So you can get almost anything when you say dirt, and mostly it works out pretty well. But you're going to have people that are going to get the wrong material. Even the word humus. What Father Fish has is humus in one area. I was dealing with someone in Europe, and humus is something entirely different. Where he's at, it's manure, composted manure, and where this woman was at, it was composted leaves.
Well,
they're not the same.
Yeah. So this, let's see here. The guy in the chat says 1 inches of dirt seems to be his sweet spot for his tanks. Never had an algae bloom in our stable day one.
Yeah, with 2 inches of sand on top of it.
But I've got way more than that and a pretty good sand cap. So
if you go too deep, all right, if you go too deep, you are going to get sulfur gas, because you get some bacteria that actually lives on sulfur, produces it. You're going to get some legitimately nasty bacteria that isn't going to do much for your bird in a good way.
both of my tanks, so that 10-gallon there, I think is 2.5. It's probably 2.5 inches of dirt, and then it's about a 1.5 to 2 inch sand cap.
But it's
a little much for that 10-gallon, probably.
Yeah.
Yes, it depends on your dirt. If your dirt allows water to go through it, then you're not going to have there's going to be some oxygen down there. It's not going to get bad. If you put you've got a lot of clay in your dirt, okay, then you might have a situation where.
Yeah, I don't have any clay. There's no clay in the dirt, but the sand itself there, the sand cap, has a considerable amount of clay in it, from what I could tell, in dust form. But there was, that's what I was saying. Some of the sand, I think we talked about this before, some of the sand here is mainly, it's just the silica and has, a little bit of iron and stuff in it, so it's real rusty. And this stuff that I got seems to be pretty heavy with clay and small stones. It almost looks like tiny little river
like
stones.
Dust.
Yeah, well, yeah, there was dust too, and I didn't wash that out because I was like, I don't know.
Well, that's going to help keep the dirt down too. That fine
Yeah.
material.
But my tank looks like that tank back there as far as the depth versus the glass, the space of water.
Yeah, mine's about 3
4
to 4 inches.
Yeah.
4 to 5 on one end. That's probably 4 inches.
And that's pretty much, even my 30-gallon or 29, whatever it is, at the office looks pretty similar to that. But maybe there's a hair more on that one.
Of course, this has been set up for 20 years.
Yeah, that's the way to go. Keep the tank going forever.
I thought about that because I'm like, well, if I want to start a new tank, I think you guys were talking about, I don't even know if I was a part of it, but you're talking about taking some substrate out of a tank that's good.
Yeah.
And working properly and moving that into a new tank. That's a pretty
Well,
nice
at least as a seed material to culture. If you start with 1 inch in a 10-gallon, 10 to 40-gallon tank, 1 inch of dirt. Now that dirt can be comprised of potting soil, black cow manure, peat moss. It can be dug out of your backyard. It can be muck from a pond. But what I recommend is that it include 2 or 3 of those items. For one thing, you don't want straight pond muck because it's too thick. The same with manure, it's too thick.
Or silt.
You need
Silt.
silts, yeah, same problem. You need a certain amount of aeration in there. The best way to do that is with peat moss.
So
Wait a minute. Time out. You brought up peat moss. Peat moss is the enemy for those of us with soft water. Okay, if you have hard water, peat moss good. If you have soft water, I would look at coconut fiber as a replacement. It's inert. It's not going to turn your water soft like peat moss will. If you got really soft water, and it's one of the things that one of the things you have to understand is that this whole thing has to work with your water. Okay, Father Fish comes from Florida, and in his universe,
my water here is 6.0 with a GH below 50, and I'm using peat moss.
It's pretty hard.
Hard. It's dead soft.
Are you talking about the drop method, like the GH1 to 8 kind of a thing, or you're doing PPM? There's 2 methods. I'm probably the wrong one. But okay, yours is soft. Okay. All right.
Here's the point. The sand bed is key. 2 inches of sand on top of 1 inch of dirt. And this is sand that pull filter sand or finer. The finer, the better. The reason Luke's tank is not exploded is because he has a substantial amount of dust.
Right.
And that dust amounts to very, very fine sand.
right.
It prevents water from flowing through. Now, water moves through it,
It does.
but it moves at the speed of the cilia on the animals that are moving it. It's the microscopic bacteria and the microfauna that are moving the water, not the filter, not the current in the water.
It's moving though, and you get diffusion. That's the other thing.
It's moving, but it's very slow. And so it's not bringing up all of that material into the water column.
So I noticed that
still, if you put too much peat moss, or even if you put peat moss in very soft water, it's going to start going acid. That it may be slow, but you're going to be going acid. Now, if you have hard water, that will.
You're going to make acid water acid. It's already acid. What do you say?
You're going to take the, when I was using it to breed killies with, and I put about little half of a goldfish bowl kind of thing in to get the dirt divers in it, and I had 2.5 or 5 gallon aquarium go from pH 6.8, 7.2 to pH 4 in 2 weeks.
That's neutral.
Not pH 4. I was thinking that fish were dead.
It dropped it to 4. Yeah, but see, you didn't have a cap.
No, because I needed the fish to dive into and spawn. But if you do have a problem, I'm just saying. See,
yeah, that's a totally different thing. That's not what I'm talking about at all.
No, I'm just saying you're safer if you want to use an
only if you're being stupid. If you're following the formula, the reason people screw up is because they refuse to follow the formula. They want to play with it. They want to say, "Oh, I don't like the look of sand. I want gravel." You can't do that. You must use sand. You may not use gravel. If you use gravel, the dirt is going to be up in the water column in a matter of minutes.
Right, it'll move. Yeah. Well, so at the end of the day, it sounds to me like it matters less about what the soil is exactly composed of, but the cap slows down the transfer of anything that's in the soil to the water. So it's all manageable by the life and actual stuff that's
Yeah,
going
and
on.
with a lot of plants in it, those plants are going to keep that water clear.
Plants
They're
are
gonna-
going to do a lot for you.
They're
Yeah,
going
that's
to
true.
be pulling. They'll be pulling chemicals out of the water. They'll be pulling not just nitrates, but they'll be pulling particulate matter out.
Phosphates, they'll be pulling
Yeah, exactly.
irons. You know, they're useful things. Plants are very useful in the aquarium.
Well, they're critical in a deep substrate. If you've got dirt in there, it's critical to have the tank heavily planted.
It seems the easiest. I don't know. All I know, I
Rooted
don't know
plants.
anything you guys know, but it seems the easiest. And I like easy because that means I can have multiple aquariums.
Yeah, exactly. That's right.
The dirted tank really made its rebirth with LED lights. Okay, under fluorescent lights, most really a lot of rooted plants for aquariums wouldn't grow very well unless the bulbs were brand new. And incandescent lights, So you really, if you're growing plants for a long time, you're a metal halo, and that's an expense. So when the LED bulbs came out, we got the ability to grow a lot of plants. So
Gives you the full spectrums and stuff like that.
exactly, and just the amount of brightness and the energy consumption, and now a tank can grow the kinds of plants we couldn't dream of when I was a teenager.
Well, it's better. I used fluorescent for years.
At 6 months, your plants started dying as your bulbs went.
Well, they changed spectrum.
Yeah, there was
The older the bulb gets, the more spectrum changes.
There was one bulb, it was a triphosphor bulb. I'm trying to remember who made it. It came in a blue tube. Oh God, I still have a couple of bulbs. Some of them are dying now because they got that old, but they were amazing. They could run over 6 months. But most of your regular fluorescent fish bulbs, plants started getting raggy.
There's a difference between the T5 and the T12 too. The T5 does not burn nearly as hot as the T12.
Right.
The gas
But-
holds up better in it.
They're more energy efficient by a long
They're
shot.
more efficient. That's right.
Yeah.
But
So-
I'll grant you that the LED is in the initial phase, in the initial years, it was not better. Mainly because they didn't have the power supply and the whatever it is, the light diode properly
You're talking
matched.
about the driver for the LEDs.
They didn't have them matched right, so they either were underpowered or overpowered. So they either burned out or were inadequate.
Well,
the
But basically, with the plants, now once you got rooted plants, that's when the dirt substrates. Now people started going back to the substrates. See, when I got into the hobby so long ago, the dirt substrate had pretty much gone out of the hobby because people were doing dirt. Believe it or not, people were doing dirt back.
People were doing dirt in the 30s and 40s and into the 50s.
Back, yes. And by the time I got into the hobby, people had pretty much gotten away from it.
Yeah, it's true. Right.
There wasn't any use in it anymore. Incandescent bulbs, unless you're, like I said, unless you're in metal halide.
Exactly. Yeah. As opposed to sunlight from a window.
Yeah. Or some people had the tanks in the window and then scrape algae twice a day. I've seen that done too.
Well, that's the way it started. People before electricity, people had fish tanks.
Oh yeah, I've actually seen a drawing of what was it, steam aquarium heater, where you put little charcoal in.
Oh, that's funny.
Water.
Yeah, right.
There was
to warm them. Yeah.
Yeah, there was a lot
But
of.
they would depend on sunlight.
Yes.
So they were always by a window.
Well, there's an old term for killifish. They call them kitchen fish in German.
Really, I didn't know that.
They were called kitchen fish because people could
kitchen
keep
was
them in their
warm.
kitchen with a
That's
stove.
interesting.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that
yeah,
was
right.
the original little bit of history.
Yeah.
German history. So, and they were small, so you could keep them in the kitchen. So, there was but basically, once we got the LEDs, people want all those really cool kinds of plants. And I think that was the real concept of what that made.
Yeah, that's interesting. I never really thought about it. I mean, I've lived it. I lived through it, and I'm wholly LED today. But
Yeah,
for a long time, I wasn't. I mean, in my shop, I started out with T5s, and I had T5s in there. That was before LEDs were available. And then they came in, and I tried them, and they failed, and I tried them, and they failed. I wound up at one point trading an old antique aquarium for about $1,000 worth of LEDs. And they were basically
super expensive. Yeah. There's still, they still have ones for saltwater. I haven't looked really too much, but they have expensive. People are paying $400.
Well, they got a lot of bells and whistles.
Yeah. I have
anything that needs a cell phone to operate is too high tech for you.
I like mine. I've got the Fluval Marine. I can't remember what it is. It's like a 25
Yeah, it's a nice
watt
fixture. Yeah.
For the 12.
You got it programmed.
Well, I've got an app, and it comes with a default pattern or whatever, and I just ran it through a cycle and then tweaked it a little bit, like you just move the bar up and down, basically. So it's pretty cool. And then
I've set a few salt tanks up.
Yeah,
they're real effective. Yeah.
I've got a little rotary switch on the back that goes click, click.
Right.
Well, I did have it on a timer, but I like it because it ramps. So it ramps from being pretty much dark, and it slowly ramps up to, full brightness. So in the evenings when we're watching TV, because it's right under the TV, it's like colorful and stuff, but it's not super bright at that point because it's already ramping down into the sunset hour. So it makes the tanks cool looking.
Disco fish tanks. Your fish are dropping acid.
Disco fish tanks, right?
I noticed in the saltwater tank there, in the crushed coral part, I was looking like a few weeks ago. I don't know if I mentioned this, but what drew my attention to it was a little triangle of like really fine coral or sand that was like, it looked like it was precipitating down or something. And I looked at it really closely with the light, and there's tons and tons of tiny little bugs operating.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know what they're doing, but they're doing it. they're moving stuff
Matt says, have you guys ever used biochar in substrate? I know, in fact, that Matt has not watched my recent video on the 13 elements that I put in the supplement for the deep substrate, because I specifically put char in.
I think that's a good segue to Father Fish sells his supplement on his website, Father.Fish.
Father.Fish, right.
Yeah.
Father.Fish, yeah. So
we get that promo in, yeah.
So what I figured out, a couple of things. We talked about the sand, that's one. The other thing that Wallstead had a problem with is that her dirt lost its value within a year. Within a year, it had no more nutritional value. So what I have done is two things. I've changed from her use of gravel to sand and made the sand deep enough to keep the dirt down under it. That's one. Number two, I've created a supplement of 13 different minerals and biological compounds that get mixed in with that soil that give it longevity. And by longevity, I mean up to 5 years, in which time it develops enough to be able to begin to effectively cycle. Keep in mind, for dirt to cycle, even in a garden, is a process that takes years. It doesn't happen in a day or a week or a month or a season. It happens over a period of years. The same thing with the dirt in the aquarium. It takes a year, 2 years, or longer for some of those elements to become cycled in the system. So these are long-term systems. This
Right,
one is 20 years old.
Yeah,
So-
it's one of those things. What's happening is some things organic are actually breaking down, and
That's exactly right.
That's why you're losing its inherent nutrition, but what's left over has a catonic. I can't how to pronounce. Where when you get older, your mouth doesn't work the way it used to. But in any case, it's a negative ionic. The humus becomes kind of charged, and that'll start bringing particles out from the water. You're putting food into the aquarium, and that's being sucked down into the substrate, and by the charge from the broken down organics. So that's refueling your.
That's exactly right. That's what the cycle is.
Right.
Well, it's the best. It seems like you're just mimicking the natural environment.
That's the whole idea.
Lake, which
That's right.
would make sense.
Well, you're cheating. You're cheating with the sand cap. The sand cap's giving you
That's true.
extra. It's giving you extra depth, and it's still giving you a degree of porosity. And so
You
it's
didn't know don't most ponds and lakes have a good layer of sand in them?
Streams do, ponds and lakes don't.
So what's in the pond? What is it considered that's in the pond or the lake? Like a silt or something?
Yeah.
What is-
It is sediment that just lays there and piles up.
when
So the
Right.
bottom of the lake is mud, with
It's-
rare exception. There are
it's
exceptions,
mud.
but
It's
the
mud.
exceptions are only where there's current.
Yeah, but
So in a
if,
stream, you have sand. In a stream or a river, it's sand.
the
But the
organics
dirt
are
and the
washed.
muck is down under that sand, if
Yes.
it's there at all.
Yeah, see, in a stream, lighter particles like decaying leaves get washed down.
Right.
In a lake, those leaves. It's in a lake you actually have. You can have 6-8 feet. Now you get into an old lake, a lake that's been there for 100
Yeah,
years.
it's feet of
And I've
mud.
fallen into one. I fell into 6 inches of water once, and my feet never touched the bottom.
Now
There was
believe
only
it.
6 inches of water, and I literally just went straight down
Scary
through
as
that
shit.
6 inches of water. Yeah, I mean, I just went right through it. I mean, there was another.
So that's different though than the lakes and stuff here. The majority of our lakes here have like a sandy clay bottom. Like if you don't sink into it, if you get into it, your feet only go down a very minimal amount. If you scoop a handful, it's like a clay
Yeah, you have current.
sand mix, and that's pretty much how all the ponds here are
Way
lakes.
at the,
The
way
lakes,
at,
not the pond.
Yeah, they're not the ponds.
they're not that
Yeah,
old,
it's because the lake has current.
and it's because the lake isn't that old. A lot of lakes are man-made, or they're very deep.
Well, you're
Well,
talking about the
I'm
Great
in
Lakes.
Michigan. So these are we have
Lake
I'm not
Michigan,
talking
like
about
Erie.
Lake Michigan.
Yeah,
so
you're
the-
right.
The southwest part of Michigan, I can't remember. We have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of lakes here. So these are like, man, we have a lot of lakes, a lot of small lakes. There's a ton of fish in here, and you can't go a quarter mile down the road hardly in another lake.
At the bottom of every lake, there's something water impermeable. There's something at the bottom.
Right, which is clay here. You know, you go down a little bit.
Rock.
Right.
I've been to other lakes where you look at the bottom, it's a solid rock bottom.
We don't have much rock here, but
every year you get a new coat of leaves, and that could be an inch, that could be a quarter inch, that could be in 3 inches, depending on how, if you're in a forest. So in mine, the lakes that I've seen are usually older lakes. So if the lake has been there for 100 years or 50 years, there's maybe 4 feet or 3 feet of leaves, just decomposing leaves, before you get down to the clay. I mean, the clay is down there somewhere.
Yeah.
But you can take an ore.
But that's what clay is. Clay is compacted detritus and minerals.
Minerals. It's actually megafine sand. It's actually like a megafine sand.
So, but they told us here that blue clay, because we have, I mean, everywhere here, you dig down 4 or 5 feet pretty much, and you end up with this real deep, usually 5, it could be 5-10 feet of clay or more depending on where you're at. But it's like this blue clay. They said it's packed full of nutrients and stuff.
Oh, it is.
So, but that's what's at the bottom of these lakes, basically here. But our lakes, they're not man-made. It's interesting. I'll have to look up some information.
Well,
they're and send it to you
they're
guys.
carved out by the ice age.
Right. But I'm just saying, most lakes these days are manicured, man-made. If there's a dam on the one end of the lake, it's man-made.
We don't have anything like that. There's only a couple lakes that I know of in the area that are man-made that have any sort of damming. Have you been to Michigan?
I have not.
Okay.
I look forward to it someday.
I can tell you, there are so many lakes here, it's unreal. It's pretty cool though, because you can go. They used to all be overfished at one point, and same thing with deer. The deer used to be overhunted, and in the last 15 years or so, people just don't leave their house, I'm assuming, and they don't hunt and they don't fish.
Right.
And so it's getting back to the point where there's deer everywhere out in the yard, and just see them everywhere. And you can catch fish that are decent sized again. So
giant antler rats.
Oh, my brother called me earlier and said he's seen an albino buck today on his.
Really?
Wow. He said he's never seen one.
That's rare.
Before. I've never seen one of those either in live.
Yeah.
He said it was like a button buck basically, but it looked like it couldn't see very well.
Probably.
No deer can see well. I've had them walk. I was sitting literally on a log, and a couple of them walked up to me, and they were not more than 5 feet away from me, and they just looked right in my face, and whoa, there's a person standing there, and they just squatted down and disappeared into the grass.
We hit them all the time.
Hey,
here.
Matt, where are you getting green sand? I called the mine in southern Jersey, and they're not mining it anymore. It's coming out of Brazil.
Oh, really?
They're mining it in Brazil.
Did you get that website I sent you?
I did.
Yeah.
Yeah, I followed through on it. Yeah.
I'm sure it's a somewhat different chemical composition.
I'm sure it is. They call it Supreme.
Yes, it's got uranium.
Green sand Supreme. Yeah, probably.
Where's the green sand? I remember, it was a thing that Killy people bred nothos in back in early '80s, I think. But by that point, I didn't find any. It just got painted.
Yeah, I want to know if I can get to the mine and sneak in there and dig out a couple of 100 pounds.
It's probably condominiums now if it's in New Jersey. Anything
Yeah,
that
right.
was anything is now condominiums.
Right, they built up on.
Yeah,
Make it
sadly.
easier to get it. Dig a hole in their lawn.
Yeah, I'm driving around my town. I don't recognize the place because they just tore down everything that was over 10 years old and put in high rise. So,
Oh no.
Well, perfect time to come to Michigan. We still have trees here. We have lakes. We have...
trees, you have
Right.
trees. I remember trees.
Yeah,
Right.
craziest thing.
Yeah, that's it. But yeah, well, you know something. It's nice that there's still parts of the United States that look like parts of the United States. You know.
Yeah. Oh, there's a ton of land. Like I don't know if you've been out west, but Napa Valley is really nice too. At least it used to be. Napa Valley is like a really cool climate. It's similar to here, but it's more hilly. So there's a lot more hills and citrus and stuff like that out there, but just south of there. But I've been all over the place, and there's not too many places that I like. Texas was okay when it was raining a lot, but other than that, it was just dried up and burnt out.
Well, you know something. It's the nature of human beings. Look at Africa, where people have lived the longest. Okay, there's almost no fertile soil left because other than a handful of jungles, the whole concept is they need all these chemical fertilizers and things because after millions of years or hundreds of thousands of years, even tens of thousands, I'm not going to quibble at this point, of human occupation, the area dies. The hanging gardens and
Wait. If there's humans around long enough, everything around them dies.
Pretty much. It's true of almost every mammal species. No matter what mammal that moves into an area, at some point it destroys its environment. Reptiles have a tendency to live with nature. I mean, snakes will never hurt their environment. They'll eventually run out of mice or whatever they eat, and then whatever. Fish don't hurt their environment typically. Most species, sure, goldfish.
Cats do.
Cats will, dogs will, people will, rats will. Rats will destroy an entire environment given a chance.
I think the problem is everything else has a pretty good ability to only grow or die off as much as necessary. It keeps its own balance. And humans, we just keep reproducing like crazy. And
we are most related evolutionarily to the rat. We really are. We're both metacognitive. I've had them, and you could communicate with them. They actually could learn your human words and speak with their paws and whatever to tell you stuff. They could even grasp sentences. The smartest.
What is he talking about?
Rats.
I was saying,
rats, right?
We're very
Right.
closely. We eat the same food. We eat all the same food.
Pizza. I've seen rats eating pizza.
Yep, they live on everything we live on, and that's what they want in life. They live in the same temperature range we do. They're comfortable in a heated house. They don't like to be out in the cold in the winter. They don't have long fur or anything. We have evolved together, and they are our little. Yeah, it's we don't like to think of it that way, but and they've outsmarted us since the dawn of time. They're still around. They're smaller. So when you look at certain things, and like I said, they'll destroy an area. They'll kill everything in the area at some point. They will over reproduce. They will destroy everything, and then they move on, or die off like we will. Might.
I just figured out.
Do when my Mexican turbo snail dies? Should I pull it when it dies, or should I leave it in the aquarium?
Do what?
It said when my Mexican turbo snail in the saltwater dies, should I leave it in there, or should I pull it out?
Yeah, push it down. Push it down into the dirt.
How old is it? The aquarium.
Well, who knows? It's how old? What?
The aquarium, not the snail.
About 8 months. Have you seen it?
Yeah.
No, I haven't, but
I was looking at it last time I paid attention to your tank.
If the aquarium is over a year old, then your bacteria should just digest that snail overnight.
You just push it down in the sand.
At 8 months, I don't know if the tank is stable enough to deal
You
with
should.
that.
You gotta see. I'm gonna send you a link to my my aquarium or Discord, a private link.
Yeah, how big is the tank?
Not big enough. It's about 13 gallons. It's a Flue Vault Edge 2.0. I don't know if you're familiar. It's a one that sits on the pedestal and it looks like it's floating. It has a small cap at the top, like a small opening. It's not an open top.
Okay. So my answer is I wouldn't at 8 months, but over a year, yeah, it doesn't matter. Your bacteria culture with salt water can be a little bit slow. You know, I mean, it depends how good your bacteria is. It's great. Dead snail is great bacteria food. It really is. It'll feed the bacteria. It's a wonderful thing. But in a saltwater tank that's not fully cycled, and I usually can't say about a year when you're perfectly safe.
Well, look at
he's cycled.
Hold on, I'm sending you in Discord. You need to look at it while I'm talking to you, and you need to tell me if you think this is a cycle tank at all.
He's got deep substrate in there. He's cycled.
Well, I'm always a little bit leery on salt water. I've had tanks go weird after longer than you think. You think they're cycled in a month, and there's always this.
It's a process. It goes on for years.
Yeah, exactly. At some point, saltwater tanks are literally indestructible. Well, as much as any aquarium is, but I'm waiting for the link to come up. I've got about blank, but yeah. As far as 2 new, I wouldn't push it.
Yeah, I've only got that one Mexican turbo snail, but he's getting pretty big. I mean, he's like this big around now, so
Now
he's not going to live forever. He's probably maybe got another year left, and I keep thinking, like, if he dies in an aquarium, is it going to ruin it?
No, it's not going to affect a thing.
Because he took most of what he's grown with.
The crab will be all over it.
I can't get it for whatever reason.
You didn't? I sent it on Discord.
I got the link. It just came up about blank, and then it said stream will start when the person sends it or something.
When it loads, you just got to let it load.
Yeah, it wasn't loading, and I don't want to kill our feed that we're talking about.
Oh.
I'll check it out later.
I'll send you a picture. How's that?
Yeah, I'm familiar with the tank setup, and they're nice. They're practical. But again, like I said, with saltwater, I'm a little more conservative than some people. Or actually, I'm less conservative. You know, I actually started a saltwater tank with a flame angel as the first fish. So I mean, you know, I was nuts years ago. I'd try anything, but you know, you get to a certain age where you like, okay, the tank looks good. It's got all the microfauna stuff. Okay, that's a nice looking tank. Let me see what get it bigger. Oh, wow. Okay, you get some nice, you got purple algae.
Yeah, it's been going for most of that stuff has been in there since about 2.5 months, except for the hammer coral. The hammer coral didn't go in until maybe 5 months. But everything else is thriving. I killed an emerald crab by accident moving rocks around. But it's doing its thing. I've got 3 rock flower anemones in there. There's a bubble tip in there. I don't know. Oh, there's a Recordia mushroom or something.
It's a really stable system.
Yeah, the Recordia closes up. It looks like it's not doing well on that plug, but it closes up every time the lights go down, and then it opens back up about 11, 12 o'clock and stays open all night. I noticed everything closes up around sunrise and sunset.
Right.
Is that normal? It must be normal.
Yeah, you bet.
Yeah, you're going to even get fish like wrasses. Wrasses will dive and bury themselves at night.
Really?
Yeah, you get a wrasse, it's gone at night. When all your front company comes over, you got a beautiful Christmas wrasse, and you want to show
under
off
the sand.
It's under the sand. It's gone. Even the dragon wrasse, that was a fun wrasse. That's always moving stuff around the thing. But the dragon wrasse is another one that will disappear at night. All your wrasses just poof, gone.
I didn't know they did that.
Parrotfish will do it, but they'll leave a big ball of slime. They actually go under the gravel and they create a slime ball. Then they come up and there's a big ball of goo.
Oh yeah, I've got 2 Nacerius snails or whatever you call them.
Right.
And they do that. They slime all over everything when they come out. And they only come out if I feed or something is going on in the tank that they smell like they want to come out. The rest of the time they're under the substrate. You know.
Now this is a big fish that does it. It gives you a big glop of goo every time it comes out of the.
Well,
yeah, it's their bed.
I have a little hermit crab in there, and that hermit crab really likes the goo that comes off of
slime. You bet. Yeah.
And anytime he sees them running around, he hops on their back and tries to eat them, and they fight, and then they bury themselves and scurry off.
Well, the hermit crab's looking for the shell.
Yeah. You know, I put a bunch of shells in there for him. He's not interested in the damn things. He's only interested in the living ones that he can attack.
Well, he wants a new home. He doesn't want a used one. You know,
Wants that new home smell.
New home smell, yeah.
Road Brawler, if you're still having trouble, get on Discord and we'll talk you through this. He got some supplement and didn't understand how to use it. And it looks like he got talked into doing other stuff he didn't need to do.
Matt asked if he orders some plant bundles and just say good one for the new fish.
Yeah, absolutely, Matt. That I prefer to do that because I've got some plants that would work particularly well in a new tank.
I have this plan, okay? This is like a sidebar thing, but I still have this plan that one day it's going to be like each of us breeds like just a few, or like even if it's one small group of fish that we can all get from each other. Kind of like, I guess it would just be like an online, what do you call it, your little groups around, but you have SCA. Yeah, SCA's got a whole bunch of aquariums. I just feel like we could all like grow a little something, and you know,
I do
because the stuff I can't buy anything, so that's the only way I'm going to get anything that lives.
The problem is that, and I used to ship stuff and ship fish all around the country, but I always did it in a bulk thing, a big styro. And, we did it from club to club. That was the most cost effective. You'd spend $60 on a crate. And a crate of fish would be 10 pairs, let's say. So, at that point, it's $6 a pair for shipping, and that's reasonably affordable.
Yeah.
The problem you get into is that when someone says to me, well, can you send me a fish? I say, okay, I can overnight it to you. Now you're into $35 in shipping, for example.
Yeah, for a $10 fish, right.
$10.
I'm still okay with that. Like, I would much rather spend a little extra and get it from somebody like you guys or somebody that I know isn't. I hate the ones to PetSmart, Petco, or whatever the heck that is, because they all just talk so much crap to me. They don't know anything. The aquariums are all screwed up. The fish are sick, or it's a gamble. It's a 50-50, whether or not they're going to live more than a couple months. It's not worth it. Like, I could spend $35 and pay for overnight shipping and still spend $50 for, 1 or 2 fish and know that they're probably going to live, or I could keep buying more and having them die and make pissed. And, that's what's happening.
There are challenges with, you got to understand that it's different. What are the different parts of the country? There's challenges even with fish that you get boxed. You should have a drip set up, if you're doing it right, depending on how hard your water is. There's, shipping fishes, again, I've done it in bulk, not so much as individuals. So
you're saying like the transit, so like imagine that you're breeding the fish and you send it to us. Your water parameters
My water's soft.
If they're wildly different and the fish are acclimated to that.
So I can ship to you, but when you ship to me, I have to acclimate them from hard to soft. So I'm going to be dripping them. So I'm set up for drip. Now, if you're used to just buying your fish at the pet store where they're in the same water that you live in, then you're not used to that. It's not, you put the bag in, temperature acclimates, you throw them in the tank, and you're done. So, you've got to, it's
so does RO adjust? So I probably know the answer to this, but what does RO do for the water? Does it adjust things like the hardness?
Yes.
And the acidity?
RO water is 7.0. It's neutral pH with no general hardness in it, no dissolved minerals.
Which
but
means
it has no buffer, right?
Pardon? It has no buffer in it. Right.
Which is good, right?
It's good if you're breeding fish that have eggs that can't hatch in hard water. See, what people don't understand about sometimes like discus you can keep in hard water. A lot of killers you can keep in hard water. That's not a problem, even alkaline. The problem is that those chemicals in the water, the ions in the water will they attach to the eggshell, and then the egg will die, and the fish won't hatch. So that's why you have things like cardinal tetras, certain killies, discus, fish that need soft acid water to hatch it. And then I hatched some odd fish in distilled water, okay, because that worked just as well, believe it or not. It didn't need the acid, it just didn't have the hardness. So it's a good thing, but it's not a good thing if, like I said, you have soft water and you put some peat moss in, and all of a sudden you have pH 4, pH 3.5, death in that tank. Even the ammonia, even when fish produce ammonia, that's bringing your pH down. There's hydrogens in ammonia. And
well, that's my point. So if you don't have much of a buffer in the water, though, isn't that going to be more of a wild swing then, right? Or am I
Yes. Yes, the buffer. Buffer is bad if you're breeding Amazonian type fish.
Okay.
That you don't want it, but if you want water quality that's going to be durable, then you want your water relatively buffered, not hard.
So imagine. So I guess the reason I keep asking this is because I use distilled water to top off my tanks. I'm not going to use the city water for sure. So how does your buffer? What is the buffer? Is it?
Calcium. Depends whether you're buffering up or buffering down.
Okay.
If you're buffering up, it's calcium.
Okay, let me do this more generic answer, and then calcium is correct answer, but the more generic one is there are elements and there are compounds that have a specific pH and they dissolve at a certain rate. So, for example, there used to be a product that was called Bullseye 8.2 or something, and my friend would just take the whole bottle at the store and drop it in the saltwater tank. That was it, the whole bottle, just throw it in. And over the course of 6 to 8 months, it would dissolve as the pH in the tank would go down because of the fish in there. It would just dissolve and keep the water at pH 8.0. That is the perfect type of a buffer. It's constantly dissolving, it's making up, it's reacting with the chemicals that would otherwise change the water. So it's creating a buffer. That is a buffer type of compound. Unlike something that just jacks up the pH or drops the pH.
Yeah, like sodium bicarbonate just jacks it up.
It's just one shot deal. Throw it in, it'll bring it up to 9+, and that's it.
Right.
So
I guess then my next thing, because that basically hits on that, if you don't buy a supplement for that to adjust or to add some sort of buffer, how are you getting buffer into the aquarium? Like in my example of distilled water, the tank has been filled with distilled water, and the only thing that's in the aquarium that's in the water column at least is whatever in that sandbag pretty much, and whatever I've added through plants or
You're not really buffering.
All of that calcium that you've got on the side of your tank.
right.
All of
It's,
that.
that's out of the sand then, right? Because if
It is the excess. If you did not have substantial amounts of buffer in that tank, you would not have that growing.
So
Well, first of all, in seawater, when you buy the pre-mixed seawater, there's buffer in it. They put the buffer into.
Yeah, it's loaded with it.
That's for seawater. Yes, that comes with buffer, but it does run out. What happens is it's going to keep buffering. It's going to keep buffering. It's going to keep doing its thing, and one day your fish are going to, or your inverts are going to look like, well, they're not going to look good because the pH is crashing. Okay, so when you buy the mix for seawater, it's not just salt. It's actually
right. Yeah, I've looked at for the saltwater mix I get because I'm tracking all that because there's different minerals and stuff and trace elements in the salt mix that I buy for that. But again, I only add distilled water to that since it's been set up.
Yeah, every 6 months you do about a 40% water change.
Or you throw a bottle of bullseye 8.0 just or 8.2.
Once or twice a year, do a 40 to 50% water change.
On the salt water?
With new water. Yeah. If that's what you're worried about. So long as you've got
I'm more worried about it. So what I was getting at, I'm more worried about on the 10-gallon freshwater because both of my big freshwater, or the 10-gallon and the 30-gallon or whatever, have been filled completely with distilled water. They don't seem like they're having any issue at all, and they're getting that buildup, but when the water evaporates a little bit, I've got that calcium there, but I'm wondering where it's coming from. It's got to be coming from the sand, then, if it's not being added from the water, right?
How are the fish doing, and how are the plants doing?
They stay alive as long as they have light. As long as I keep the duckweed from, they grow like crazy.
Then don't worry about it. If it's not a problem, don't try to fix it.
No, I was just curious how you would get that buffer into distilled water.
Yeah.
Okay. No, you're not getting the buffer, and eventually, over time, at some point, whatever buffer is in your substrate will get used up, and the pH is going to start going down. Okay, you may have buffer in the substrate, but there's going to be a cycle where things break down, and you're putting calcium, you're putting things in the fish food, but eventually, just about every aquarium that has, depending how many fish you have on it, is going to go south on it.
Unless you have a good, strong, deep substrate, and then that won't happen. 20 years.
I feel like there's a
20 years, 8.0.
You've changed water in that tank in 20 years.
I did when I moved here, which was 4 months ago, and I did 5 years before that when I changed 50%. I top off for evaporation, but I've got lids on it, so I don't get much evaporation.
What do you use to top off? Do you use the tap water?
I use tap water.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, there's no, distilled water is something saltwater people do because.
I never use distilled water.
No,
in a freshwater tank.
I'm not terrified. I do it here because of all the extra stuff that they put in. You just can't even drink it, and I don't want. I know that if it smells like chlorine coming out, if I go
collect lake water, use lake water.
I wondered. Well, that was going to be my next thing, and I was wondering about doing something like that instead.
Just get a pump and a barrel, and keep 50 to 100 gallons of lake water in a barrel.
Someone asked about topping off with rainwater for the salt water, because the salt doesn't evaporate. No, you don't add salt every time that you top off. You don't add salt when you top off.
Rainwater is often acidic in the United States. So
well, that was, and I was gonna say also, how are you collecting the rainwater? I hope you're not getting it from
You're right. It could have.
asphalt roof.
Yeah.
well, you know something. It depends where you live. You may not be in a high pollution area where your roof is pretty clean.
Rob Brewer, what about just putting
US?
some water in some Home Depot buckets, adding in some brine, and letting it sit? That's great, except for the brine. You don't need the brine.
Yeah, you don't put the product. Really, try not to use that. If you don't need to, don't mess with it. But it's not going to do you any good because the chlorine will just eventually evaporate on its own with an open bucket. Just leave the bucket.
Well, yeah, and that's the other thing because I have considered, because I told you before, that's what we did a long time ago. I mean, 15 or more years ago, maybe more than that, but they've added more and more stuff to the city water now.
Yeah, if you can get wild water, which you can, that's absolutely preferable. The best water you can have. That's what well water is.
Yeah.
Well water is wild water.
Yeah, well, water is pure. There's no, the only real downside what you can get in water is sometimes that green stuff, that green pea soup green bacteria that turns your whole algae that turns your whole tank green. That's the only thing that you really want to risk.
Chunky Gecko uses river water. Perfect.
River water, yeah, that's really good. Yeah, river water because it's moving. It doesn't.
Yeah, you bet.
So
yeah, the well water around here, the well water around here tends to have a lot of, depending on how deep the well is, has a lot of iron and a lot of calcium in it.
That's good it's good for the tank, good for the fish. Doesn't hurt a thing, absolutely.
The whole
Plants
thing
require iron, and the more calcium you got in the water, the better it is for the plants and the system.
up to a point, I'll agree with that. we're going to disagree on some of the fine.
I know, it's just funny because I feel like RJ is not 100% on the committed to the deep substrate situation. he agrees that it works.
Yeah, I know.
We
had this conversation when he first came into the show.
See,
we did not agree to disagree.
The point comes down to, because I use smaller tanks. That's why I designed the denitrator behind me. You can kind of see what it is. I'm not going to explain it. But it was to a large degree designed off of the father fish, the deep substrate method. Okay, it's a bioreactor that basically works with an oxygen gradient. And so I designed my thing off of father fish's method. But what it comes down to is I can't use some of the things because my tanks are too small. If I put 4 inches of gravel into this tank, that much of the tank would be gone.
I would throw you out of the club.
Yeah, you could have seen my freshwater then, because my freshwater is a 10-gallon, and I mean I got this much substrate in it. It's been doing great.
That's it. One of those tanks behind me is a 3-gallon.
I know. You said they're pretty.
And you put 4 inches of it is literally maybe 7 inches tall.
So then you'll have like what, a 2-gallon aquarium. You can put a betta in it.
That's right.
I will with 4 inches.
It'll be the best tank you've got.
The only 1-gallon tank I've got going at this point. You could use a pickle jar for that. I have pickle jars. I still have pickle jars to pre-fish it.
I had a 20-gallon log at the shop. Now, 20-gallon log is 9 inches tall. It's a shallow tank. I had 5 inches of substrate in that tank, 4 inches of water. It was the best tank I had in terms of its ability to grow plants and keep fish healthy.
I agree. You're right under the lights. The plants are going to love it. As far as the few fish you can keep in there, they'll probably be healthy. Yes.
Have you seen the? There's some YouTube channels that post. They do these little. What do they call them? But they're sealed containers. They'll take like a scoop full of basically muck or sand from the beach. They'll put a cap on it, put it in the window, and see what grows. But they've done this like near the ocean and stuff, and it's pretty cool. There's all sorts of stuff that grows out of the substrate that they just pull out of the ocean. Crabs for one, and they've had these things sitting in the window and growing for 6 months or a year.
It's called a resurrection jar.
Yeah.
They're something. It's a good thing if you're going to go to the wild and bring things in. Throw it in a jar first. Throw it in a 2.5 gallon tank if you got one. Throw it in there. See what happens. I went and got some substrate out of the stream, and I put it in. And all these worms came up. All these filter feeding worms just came out of the set. I picked it up as basically silk. I was going to see, put some silk in it.
Amazing amount of life in there.
Came to life, yeah. So you gotta. Sometimes that would be good. Filter feeding worms would have been nice. I tried to get them out of the silk, but I never could separate them and put them in another tank. But there are things I've also found that you really don't want in an aquarium. The green slime water. I mean, that green pea soup. I took one piece of hornwood, a single piece of hornwood from a pond, threw it in a 45-gallon tank. 4 days later, I couldn't see a fish in it because it was just solid pea soup green. And there was nothing but a wet piece of hornwood I threw in that tank. So
green water, you got green water? Is that what you said?
Yeah, I got green water from one piece of hornwood in a 40-gallon
Well,
tank.
it wasn't the hornwood, of course. It was the single cell algae that was riding in on the hornwood.
And that turned the tank pea soup green. And I remember I had gotten my Vortex diatom filter, and I'd never used it before. It was laying in the basement. I got it at an auction or something. It came with the material and everything. And I went and I hooked it up, and I cleaned up that tank beautiful in just no time at all. The first and last time I used it, but it was wonderful. So yeah, but you can screw up like that,
Of course, green water is probably the best way to keep fish.
Yep, you're
right.
The
only problem is you can't see them.
You can't see them. Yeah, exactly. Almost everybody who's got a big fish room has a green water aquarium where they screwed up and they got it. So,
I need somebody to
put all the babies in it.
Yeah. What are the little rainbow fish and certain tetras? They love green water to start. They need it.
I need somebody to send me some pupfish.
Oh, good
I
luck.
I got some coming. One
Do
of
you?
these, I do, yeah. They're coming.
Desert pup or salt brackish pups?
Another brackish.
Okay.
They only survive in brackish then?
Yeah.
Hard water. If you got hard water, they'll do all right in hard water.
Add some salt and a little Epsom salt.
A little bit, yeah.
Or take. You have salt water. Take some mix. Make brackish.
Right.
You're not going to keep plants in it, but the pupfish will be okay.
Yeah.
I kept plants in it. You saw my pupfish breeding. They were in.
It did. I like the idea.
There was a lot of plants in there. That was just hard water. That was not anything special. It was not brackish.
American flagfish. There's a pupfish you can do in freshwater.
American flagfish, you said?
Yep, American flagfish or Florida flagfish. Was it Florida flag or American flagfish?
Yeah.
That's a pupfish, and it's an algae eater too. It'll keep your tank clean.
I don't like them as much.
It's a killfish?
Killifish. All pupfish are killifish.
Yeah, they're killies.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So, what are they? They're Floridensis or something? I don't remember the name.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if it's a legit Sapernodon or not, but I think it's Floridensis.
I don't think it's a Sapernodon.
That was bluegills, some of them.
The male in breeding season
The
is
printed
really,
on Varianus that's the easiest one to get and keep. And
that's the sheep's head minnow.
yeah, exactly.
Sheep's head minnow. That's easiest to get. They grow.
Yeah, they're all over Jersey,
Yeah, we've got them up here in New York. More New York than here, but
New York, Maine. I don't know how far up they go. They probably go up to Maine.
Yeah, I haven't seen them here. We have fungulus species here. We're kind of fungulus out along my area of the coast. All different, beautiful fungulus, but they want marine water. They're heavily marine fish. They won't do well in fresh.
Well, we got the same stuff in Maryland.
Yeah, you want, but the desert pupfish.
That's a whole different thing. Can you even get them?
Yeah, you can, but not often, and it's basically you got to know someone who's got them because you can't take them off government land. I mean, a lot of them are protected, and so the only people that can really get them.
Central Florida, yes, I want to get. I'll put an order in.
I was gonna say Father Fish is putting on his order.
I'll tell you where to go.
But the desert pupfish are beautiful. They are available.
Are they?
Yeah, they are available. But again, they come usually from a farm pond or someone who owns a whole bunch of desert, and they can go out in the backyard and collect it, kind of a thing, where it's legal for them to do it. You can't.
I don't think they're any prettier than the coastal ones.
A lot of them are blue and purple. They're pretty.
They are. The males are stunning.
Purple is beautiful. I mean, and the blue isn't bad either. You get the tank of blue and purple swimming around. That's kind of cool.
Right.
So yeah, I've always found them attractive.
Well, so the reason that I brought up getting some other sort of fish is I've got that 29-gallon, and I put guppies in it while I was getting it started, just so that there was life going on and it could do its thing and cycle. Well, now that one's probably been going for 6 months.
Yeah, I've got some coming. I'll make sure.
I let a lot of the water
them
evaporate out of that one because I had been keeping up with it. And pretty much all the adult guppies died, and there's like 6 small ones. And we ended up with one of these pink tetras or whatever somehow. One of those glowfish or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
And that thing basically ate whatever didn't make it. So I filled it back up. Everything's going well, and I would like to not have an explosion of guppies in there. I would like to have something else in there. So
pretty much everything eats guppies. So,
what is Nightbot, and why do we have it popping up?
Nightbot pops up in my chat because every so many messages it pops up. You're probably seeing it because of my channel.
Okay. All right, we've been here 3 hours, guys. Are you all tired yet? RJ can go all night.
Well, we're having fun. That's what it comes down to.
I know.
Are we entertaining anybody?
Well, I tell you what, I'm gonna go find the facilities, and you guys.
All right, we'll hang out for a while.
I'll leave you to chat for a while.
Yeah, no. What you're doing when you're adding the distilled water is you're not adding the buffer.
Yeah.
What is your if you were to take some water, put it in a garbage can or a couple of big Home Depot style buckets.
You're a little quiet. If I take a water, what?
If you take water, okay, and you were to put it into a bucket, just let it age out, tap water, okay, what are you going to have in that bucket?
I'm going to have fluoride. I'm going to have...
Not a problem. That's pretty minor.
Yeah, so I thought, we talked about this before, but I'm not 100% sure now. I've got to look at the deal there. I know that we've got a minor amount of lead, but minor.
No problem.
phosphate, or they're putting some sort of coating. We talked about that before, and you said something different than it was explained to me that they do, but they're putting something in to coat, what they said, to coat the pipes that basically prevented the leaching of lead out of the pipes.
Probably something that makes it less acidic. That's usually what it really.
Well, they said they were coating it with phosphate or something, some sort of. What the heck is it? It's something that basically clings to the inside of the pipe.
You have to look it up to see if it's toxic to living things. It shouldn't, because you're drinking.
There's four main things that they add, and all of them are bad. You know, the chlorine situation, the fluoride, which, I mean, in small amounts probably maybe it doesn't matter, but, you know, fluoride, chlorine, which I know that we can get rid of that. And we actually, but there's not, besides what they're coating the pipes with, from what I understand, the water's fine if you let it sit overnight and let chlorine evaporate.
Right, so let's look at it this way. Once the chlorine and everything's evaporated, what do you wind up with? What kind of pH? What kind of hardness? What is it?
I haven't looked, but it's been fine. So when we used it years ago, we didn't have to do anything to it. It was perfect. We used it in salt water, no problem. I mean, we had no...
Right, so before you go on with distilled and everything else, if you can age out tap water, okay, and then you do water changes. You know, I mean, you don't have to do them every week. Obviously, your water's pretty stable because you've run it several months apparently without doing anything. But if you do water change every few months, or depending, again, I don't know what your needs are going to be, weekly, monthly, annually, whatever. But if you're going to do some water changes, that's a simple way to deal with it. You know, I mean, and you can add tap water too. You know, again, if you're aging it, it works. You can just use the tap water. Don't go nuts. People go really nuts, and a lot of times they're doing themselves more harm than good.
Yeah, I mean,
if you can work with your tap water, that's what you really want to try to do, where you can.
I just don't want to ruin anything. It only costs me $1 per gallon. And when I go to the store once a week, I grab 5 gallons and I forget about it.
Go get some lake water.
Yes, the thing is, you may be complicating things. Okay.
No, I know.
If all you're going to add is distilled water, you are losing your buffer in the fresh water. Sooner or later.
Yeah, it's true.
And that's, I know. So I've thought about that. And so basically, that was why we tried using the well water at the office in the 29 gallon to see, with the excess iron and calcium in that, how that tank would do. And that tank's doing fine. It's been refilled with the well water. So I've considered getting that and topping off the tanks from that. But I figured it just seems like there's so much in that water, but I haven't tested it, so I should probably test that water.
You should test it to see what you're dealing with. You know, right. See, the problem I got was working with somebody, and they had an active substrate. They were not in the United States, and their sand was coral sand, some kind of coral sand. They were living in an island nation, and I said, look, you want to find real sand. At this point, find real sand, or find, you wanted the tank to stay whatever pH is coming out of the faucet, not go up to 8.0, 8.2, whatever. And he's got 6 point something coming out of the faucet, and his aquarium's 8 point something. He says, I want to do a major water change. What do I do now? I said, well, you don't. Because if you did a major water change, you're going to crash the pH and change the hardness, and you can't do major water change. So, once you create your aquarium, which is separate from your water source, with totally different water, you now have to deal with, you can't do water changes when you need to or when you have to. Sometimes you just have to. Something got dumped in there. Your neighbor's kid dropped the whole, container of flake food into your aquarium. Oh no.
See, I'm more of the person to just let that burn and not think about it for a little bit and start completely over because I'm pissed.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about, but like I said,
But I know what you mean. It can be saved.
it can be saved, you know. So what I'm saying is, you don't necessarily. If I'm doing a really exotic fish, I'm not doing anything that kinky right now. But if I'm doing something really, really exotic, I set up a water treatment setup to create water for that fish. I might use distilled water a percentage, or I might use Epsom salt to put magnesium if I want it harder. You know, I'm going to mix a mix, and that's going to be a recipe. I'm going to make it 5 gallons or 20 gallons at a time, and I'm going to store that away. And it's going to be the same as what's in the aquarium, so I can do my water changes when I need to. Because I have the aquarium, I've got the water ready for it. Okay, but that's not something I do just for common zebradania, you know, zebrafish. If I'm doing zebrafish, it's going to live in my tap water, whether it likes it or not. It will like it.
Well, you have to remember, I know that I'm not very smart, so I figure anything that I attempt to do is going to be way worse than what nature does on its own. So
what I'm saying is, unless you're doing something really flaky or exotic, or you know, I mean, desert pupfish are exotic. Yeah, I put a lot of Epsom salt in, as I recall. My mix had Epsom salt. Had some salt in it. I think a little pinch of plaster of Paris was somewhere in there, you know, to make it, you know. I mean, I really, you know, I made the water, and the fish was happy as hell. And by the way, it came from someone living in Arizona, where they just got the water from where the pupfish came from. You know, they had rock hard water, so the fish were perfectly fine where they were raising. So the thing is that you can create it if you're doing an esoteric fish, but otherwise you want to try to get your aquarium to be very similar to your water source, so you don't have to do a lot of mixing and creating. And you want to try to pick fish that will live in them. Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, I mean, you're basically, the gist of it that I'm getting is you want to reproduce the conditions that the fish require or that they're used to in general, which makes sense. I mean, it's no different.
Or you want
salt water for the saltwater fish. You don't want to give them fresh water. They're used to salt water.
Or you want to get fish. You know, look, you go into the pet store. You're gonna first of all, most pet stores. That was a good thing about pet stores. Was they only ordered fish that live in their water. Okay, when you go into South Jersey, Central Jersey, the water's soft here. It comes out of the Raritan River where I live in this area. So the water's soft because it's river water or canal water. And down here you get discus. Pet stores all carry discus, angelfish, that kind of stuff. You went up to North Jersey, you've got African cichlids where the water's hard. You walk into a pet store up there, they got a wall of African cichlids.
Well, that's interesting.
Well,
I never did consider the fact that if you buy from these places, you don't know what the water quality is, where it's coming from when you're going to the stores to be able to compare to yours. And for example, I've noticed that because some of these big stores, they're doing all sorts of filtration, weird stuff, and the issues they're having with their fish look directly related to the water they're getting from the city. And I'm thinking, well, if they're topping all these off with city water, you know, like that's gonna.
No, the problem that you have with the big chain, you're talking about chain stores, I assume.
Yes. Yeah.
The problem you have with chain stores is there's somebody at home office, okay, and they are located in Cincinnati, Ohio, let's say. I'm not picking any chain store.
Yes, frog ball.
I don't like Ohio.
Yes.
That works for me.
Okay. And I just grabbed a city at random. I'm not mentioning a chain store. So if there is a chain store located there, I'm not picking you on purpose. But there is an ordering guy who is ordering the fish for all the stores. So he's probably sending the same fish to Florida as he's sending to Minnesota, as he's sending to New Jersey, as he's sending to Maryland, in general, because he just ordered 25,000 angelfish.
Right.
and he's having them shipped to a central distribution center out there. So in some areas where the water is good for angelfish, the water is nice and soft, slightly acid, my God, those angelfish are going to do great. In an area where the water is rock hard and alkaline, not so good. But then he's also shipping African cichlids to all the stores. So in some areas, the African cichlids would look great, and really pathetic in other areas.
Well,
So,
and it looks like, I mean, I don't know if you guys know this, but it looks like those chain stores seem to share water between, they use like one system for all of the fresh water. Is the water all shared?
unfortunately, I think that most of them are.
It looks like.
My friend built a setup for a huge fish store, and water pumps were 5 horsepower. And the vats, they used sand bed filters, and the vats were 500 gallons for filters. And he had a room full of them, and this was a hot room because he had at least 3 or 4. And then a wall of sterilizers, a whole wall of 4-foot sterilizers that all the water went to its sterilizer. This is an amazing system. And it took about a year to build. And it cost a fortune to run. Because, like, it's just the heat that was thrown off from those big pumps, it heat half the store. But most pet stores, the chain stores, don't have that kind of a system. All the water goes through, a single filter goes back to all the tanks. And if there's no sterilizer in line, a single disease comes from one tank, goes to everything.
Right.
So it's important to understand that, yes, it's easier to maintain a single system, but it's also a nightmare for diseases and whatnot.
That's what I figured, and I don't want to do any more fish from those places. So my next thing is going to be trying to source some stuff. That was what I was thinking, the mono shrimp. We have a store where I got my saltwater stuff from. They have a mono shrimp, but I want to say they're $6 or $8 a piece, which
Right.
is a little high. But I guess if they're hard to.
Well, the question is why are monos? I don't think they're particularly attractive versus some.
I don't
Martinez. They're much prettier.
see them, and I don't really care. They do a really good job, at least at the office in here, keeping the tanks clean, keeping the algae off the leaves and stuff. They stir up the bottom. Well, we have a 2.5 gallon that's got like the little red cherry shrimp or whatever in it, and they just, I don't know, they don't grow as big as fast, and they don't do as much.
Get yourself some live bearing trapdoor snails. They have two babies at a time, usually at most.
What are they?
Giant Japanese pond snail is the one used, the most preferable. Some people call them, or there's an American species very similar. I think they're probably as good. It's called a trapdoor snail. It's got a door, and it's about the size of a mystery snail, and maybe a little larger. And it's not a pretty snail. It's a greenish shell, olive drab shell, and it's got kind of color on the body. So if you see the body, it might be pink or purple, or even gold. But still, it's not a gorgeous snail. But it'll just go to work. That's it. They just go to work and they eat all the algae. So yeah, it's pretty. Yeah, there's more algae growing on it. Yeah.
And they got a 20-pack for $59.
They're precious, and by the way, you can put them outside. They live out in ponds. They'll overwinter and they buck. Like I said, if you got a pond, just set them 10 years down the road. You'll have lots of them for the rest of your life. But nevertheless, they're invasive. You probably shouldn't do that. People don't do that. But, there's a great snail, and it's big. It has only a few offspring. It will never overpopulate. And if your water quality goes down, it'll close up, and then it will die. But if you see it closed up for 3 days, not feeding or anything, it's time for a water change. It's a great way to know that it cannot survive. It does not live in acid water. The water pH is fresh, and it will not live. So as soon as your pH starts going down, your snail closes up. Time to do a water change.
Chunky gecko. You don't, but if you build a food web out of humic material like leaves that are gathered from a body of water, so they're partially broken down, spend a month or two building that slowly and gradually so that you've got maybe an inch on the bottom of your tank. Then you will be able to have cultures of microfauna that are not going to be immediately scarfed down as quick as they hit the tank, because there'll be plenty of places for them to hide that the fish are not going to get to as easily or quickly. So that's the trick, is to build a food web, but you don't want to do it all at once or you'll foul the water. You do it slowly. You put a small handful of material in once or twice a week until you've got it built up to the point where there's a substantial food web in the system.
So, not to turn this into a 24-hour stream, but that reminds me of something else I meant to ask. As I start my aquariums up, whether it's saltwater or freshwater, what I do is overfeed a little bit in the beginning, keep the lights on pretty heavy, and let it do its thing. And once I see that it's starting to get algae and stuff like that blooming a lot, then I start, after a couple days of that, I start to back the light down and stop overfeeding or stop feeding at all to the tank for a good little while and then let it level off. Is that?
Well, what you're describing is a system that you developed and tweak and have control over. And that's really the key. I don't do that, but that doesn't mean what I do is better than what you do, because you've got control of what you're doing.
You brought up a good thing, algae. Okay? Algae is a sign that your tank is coming to life.
Right.
There are so many people out there who are so hell-bent on killing algae.
And I learned that Father Fish mentioned that in one of his videos, like that it's your bestie or whatever, and not to scrape it off the glass and stuff unless you.
If it's blocking your view, scrape it off the glass. But other than that, you want algae. You know, when you're looking at the aquarium, usually a brown algae will start first. That would be your first algae.
Right.
Brown, especially in salt water, you get a brown.
Right.
Then you're going to get a green algae that's going to slowly replace the brown in general. Okay. Then you get other less desirable algae. But that green algae that grows on the glass, it's telling you your tank is healthy, it's alive. Okay. And if that algae ever dies, your fish are not far behind, trust me. So you did something terribly wrong.
Well, it's funny because on the salt water, I gauge my feeding, because I do feed that one some compared to the freshwater, which I don't really feed anything. But the salt water, I feed periodically, and I base it off of the algae growth daily on the glass. Because I see it grow on the glass, I watch the snails and stuff come across and eat it, but it might go 3 days and it might not grow very much at all. If it goes more than 2 or 3 days and I don't see it, the little thin film growing, on stuff, I'll add a little bit more food. And then it kind of pops right back off and they all eat off of it, eat some. But on that salt water, I only clean the front glass on that. And, but talking about the algae growing on stuff, when you start an aquarium, as soon as I see that start going, I just let it do its thing. I don't clean it off the glass.
Yeah, and to touch on that a little bit, when
That's
when,
that's why you've got that coralline algae in there, because you've allowed that to culture.
yeah, one of the things that you do, and comes to you over time, for those of us who've been doing this a very long time, you look at a tank and you know it's there. You just know it. The plants aren't right. The water looks wrong. It's something you actually have to culture in time. When you have a healthy tank, take a good look at it. Don't just look at the fish. Look at the whole tank. And then when it doesn't look like that, usually you'll be surprised. There's something wrong with it. You look at a tank and there's no algae in it. You know there's something really wrong with it. The water's the wrong color. The plants aren't growing right. They're growing stringy. Something like that. There's you just get to look. You just walk up to a tank and go, "Yeah, that's beautiful. That's healthy. That's cool."
Yeah, it's like looking at a plant outside. If the plant is yellow or stringy or not growing properly, you're missing a nutrient, or something.
Right, and
water.
You can look at it and say this tank needs a water change, and it needs it badly. You can look at an aquarium and go, "It's been 8 months. I haven't changed water, but all the fish are fine. The plants are growing. Everything is happy. Leave it the hell alone."
You guys are completely blowing my system here.
Aren't we?
Yeah.
No,
well, let me explain what I mean. You have pierced the veil. The reality is, and it came up when you were talking about your system for setting up a new tank, and my response was, you've got control of that system, and you're able to do it with some refinement, and so it's working for you. And that's what RJ's talking about. It's the mystical relationship that the fish keeper has with the tank that is more than technical. It's psychic, and it's emotional, it's visual, it's really your relationship.
It's like the farmer,
It's like the farmer. It's exactly right.
That's what sometimes makes it, one of the reasons we have these kind of conversations is because a lot of times it's very hard to nail, hit that nail on the head. And we talk around it, so people are listening. They're still with us. God bless you all.
There's at least 17 of them still.
Well, if you're still there, God bless you, and I hope you're having fun. Enjoying with us. So, the point being that we go around and around, but if you're just listening and you're picking up tidbits here and bits and pieces there, you're actually reassembling those in your mind. Over the conversation.
Good information for sure.
And you're gonna come out smarter after you go to sleep tonight. And you wake up tomorrow and you look at your fish tank and you say, "It's all right. I can see that my algae doesn't look right, or that needs a water change. Because that tank looks better and this looks crappy, or that doesn't need a water change. Because look at that. That's perfectly fine. And I've been changing it once a week, and I don't think I need to do that anymore." So you start looking at that, and but it's something you back into. It's not something where you sit in a lecture hall and the professor can sit there and go, "And this is what a healthy aquarium looks like." It's not going to happen. You can't.
Yeah, it's true.
So,
the whole thing about the deep substrate, all that is about is saying to a brand new person who has never set a tank up, or somebody who's not done one particularly successfully, here's something you can do that's going to work 100% of the time.
Right.
If you do it right,
and
you won't fail. The fish will live. You'll be able to get started.
Right.
It is a beginning. It's not the end of it all. It's the first step.
But it gives you the confidence to know that you can have an aquarium for more than 2 months without killing everything, and you can have clean water, you can have plants growing.
That's exactly right.
You can have fish, and then walk away from it for a week and come back, and they're all still alive.
Yeah.
It's it's one of those things where when you start baking something, my daughter is getting into baking and cooking things. You need a starter recipe. You can work off of that, but you're making your first pea soup. It's not just going to be peas and water. Or you're baking a cake. You're not just taking a bunch of flour and walking through the kitchen looking for stuff to put in it. Okay, you gotta have an idea of how many eggs and how much baking powder or yeast for bread or whatever you're gonna do. You have to have some idea of how long it's gonna have to be in the oven. But then what you're gonna do the next time you make it is you're gonna add maybe some cinnamon or you're gonna add your own flavorings and you're gonna make your cake from that. And you're
Yeah,
gonna
to
get
learn
that
what works and what you like.
right. I mean, like I said, in my water conditions, peat moss is not my friend. Coconut fiber is. Other places, Florida, peat moss is your best buddy. Because you're coming into a very alkaline area. And you don't have night air fish that don't need it. So my tap water is good. I can raise most fish in my tap water. You may have a totally different water experience where your water smells foul. It's full of sulfur. And God knows what.
So, Frog Brawler asks, have you noticed any correlation between water flow rate and algae growth? I don't have enough experience. The only thing I can say to that is anywhere that I have water flowing for long periods of time, algae grows. If it's hitting the glass or if it's on the actual, what do you call it, the wave maker or whatever. On the salt water, I've got like a nice little patch of algae growing on it.
My spin on it is you really don't have the kind of a flow in most home aquariums that would matter to algae much. Yes, if you think of a rapidly moving river, you're going to have different algae that grow versus ponds. So water flow will impact the types of algae and the types of plants that can live in it. But unless you're hooking up, a rack of canister filters, and then the water might be filtered. The filter might be taking more spores out of it.
I worry so much when people have canister filters. All I can think in my mind is, oh no, you're going to filter out all the things that need to be in the water.
No,
Yeah, and that's true. But if you're into feeding heavily and you've got a shallow substrate, you better have a canister filter or something strong enough to get all that excess gunk out of there.
I'm not going to bring it up this time, but for next time, I want to discuss foods and what is in the food, what that does to the tanks, because I have a bunch of theories on that. But I think that's
live
for another night.
I feed all live. I don't even have flake food in the house.
Let's see. Jeff wants to know what the best time to gather leaves from the stream is. I could say the fall when they fall in. I could say the spring when they've wintered over. I could say the summer when the culture is richest. The answer is whenever you're there and see them. Grab a handful and stick it in a bag and bring it home. Then you can put it in the jar if it scares you until you get your nerve up to put it in the tank.
Father Fish, his answer is don't overthink everything that you're doing with the aquarium. RJ is like, well,
I look at it this. There are people in this world who have get that phenomenal luck. Mine is going to go wrong, and I'm going to have the fun fixing it. That's why a lot of people ask me questions about their sick fish, their problems. That's not because I sat there and studied it. That's because I slogged my way through them. Okay, so, you weren't
doing a dirted substrate with a sand cap on it.
again, my point is, you know,
I'm just giving you a hard time.
I get the weird look. Fine, it's interesting, and yes, I've dealt with a lot of weird stuff that most people haven't seen, but that's just my luck. You know, everybody has different luck, and so there's
Well, there's too many moving, it's a moving target, or there's too many variables for everybody's individual situation.
yeah. See, like I said,
for water, because of different things. You know.
I went and took one piece of hornwort, rinsed it off, dropped it in a 45-gallon tank, and it went so green. That doesn't necessarily happen because I've taken other plants and put them in other tanks, and it never went that way. But once you have that experience, you look at it and you go, well, I know where this can go terribly, terribly, terribly wrong. And, you know, so I'm going to be, you know, when Father Fish is going to be talking about stuff and he's more optimistic, odds are he's probably going to be quoting 90% of the cases. Or I'm going to come in and go, throw it in a jar, see what happens to it first. That's because the other 10% of the time, I found you know, years ago, 3 times I found this thing in my life.
1%. 1%.
There is a bug that lives in a local pond, a local lake, and it is the size of a ladybug. It looks like a ladybug, except it's lime green with glowing red eyes. And if it bites you, it feels like you stuck your hand in a light socket. You will not forget this bug. Okay? And I've run across 3 of these in my life. But I have, and most people haven't. I don't even know if it's scientifically got a name, but it bites. And if you see one, leave it alone.
Invasive species.
I don't know its distribution, its range. All I know is you look at it and it's really cool. And that's why you're stupid enough to put it in your hand.
I've noticed that too. They follow you around. I've noticed.
What?
It's the demons.
The demons, yeah. It's, you know, so like I said, I've run across a lot of weird stuff, and you know, if you're a person who's lucky like Father Fish, go that route. If you've got a little hesitation, I'm not going to tell you not to do it, but I'm going to say, put it in a jar first, see if anything creeps out of it.
Well, now wait a second. That theory doesn't add up because I don't even come close to considering myself lucky, and I've got a couple Father Fish aquariums. They're doing all right. But I do get the point because a lot of people do canister filters, a lot of people do gravel, and I was just looking at a 55-gallon the other day that I think I told you had a gravel bottom and got koi in it and stuff. It's fine. There's no buildup on the bottom. There's not there's so many variables that the tank, but I don't care to spend the money on all the extra stuff or babysit it, and I just want it to be easy. And I do like the plants. I do have to say I like the abundance of plants in the aquarium just because of the colors. It looks nice, you know, like, yeah, the fish are cool looking too, but I like saltwater originally because of the corals and stuff, and you can get some nice, good color in the tank with plants, you know.
You know, it depends on, look, if you're doing, let's say, a 700-gallon aquarium, I'm going to tell you that box filters like I use or regular size sponge filters like Father Fish uses are not necessarily the best filter for a 700-gallon aquarium. Let's be honest about it. Okay? You need something larger, more powerful. Now, do you need a canister filter for a 20 ball? The answer is no and hell no. Okay? But for a 700-gallon tank, a canister filter is not necessarily overkill.
Probably 2.
Right.
Maybe
Possibly.
even 3. That's a lot of water. I had 2 in mine.
Right. So
in my 500, I had 2 canisters.
Yeah, and that makes sense because you change one at a time. You don't wipe out your bacteria culture as readily.
And I tell you another thing that's cool. If it leaks, throw it in the tank. Let it leak in the tank. It'll work just fine sitting in the tank.
There you go. You're basically making a corner filter out of it, a giant corner filter.
Yeah, right.
Overhead drive corner filter. But see,
Okay. Well, that begs the question: why the hell do you need it? Why would you put? What's the reason for a canister filter per 250 gallons versus on a 20-gallon?
Because you need
Just the volume of water.
Water movement. Yeah, you got to have water movement through the filter, otherwise the bacteria and everything dies. And you need to circulate a certain percentage of the water in the aquarium, or again.
Now I had big 12-inch sponge filters, 3 of them, in my 200-gallon tanks, and that worked pretty well. But I found it worked a lot better if I created a sump or had some kind of external filter where I could move a lot more water.
There's an economy of scale. When you look at a little box filter like I use, it might be moving 40 gallons an hour, and that's fine for a 5-gallon tank or even a 10-gallon tank. But 40 gallons an hour is not going to work on a 100-gallon tank. It just isn't. There won't be any current in the tank.
Right.
And the water will just get stagnant, and you'll have dead spots. So,
yeah, exactly. Right.
So there's an economy of scale where you have to actually go
flying around on the country.
Is that a mosquito?
Yeah.
That's one of those. Zika mosquitoes.
Oh, really? With the stripes on it?
The stripe one, yeah.
Wow.
There you go.
Just a little bit of.
Oh, that's a beast. Look at that.
Yeah.
What a monster.
Can't see the stripes, but they're there for sure.
Holy cow.
Good God, you've killed it, man. You've probably wiped out an endangered species.
Let's hope so.
Let's hope so.
No, a liberal's going to be coming in after you any moment now.
No, we have guns.
You wiped that,
right.
Dude, because
you wiped out an obnoxious species.
We have
man, the ball works.
So okay, well,
Sorry, liberals, we love you too.
Yeah, we're done, guys.
This 24-hour live stream's been fun, but I'm gonna go watch some TV. And,
really.
We're gonna save something for next time.
Fish.
Right.
We're gonna talk about fish food.
Fish food. All right. Monday night. Let's see. Today's Thursday. We'll be on Saturday night with EJ. Sunday night with Mary Page. We'll be back here next Monday. Wednesday morning, Mary Page is doing Wednesday mornings all by herself. She did last week. It was fantastic.
Nice.
It was amazing. She had 7 or 8 people up, chatting away, showing tags. It was wonderful. That's her forte. We're giving her Wednesday mornings. We'll be back here next Thursday.
Don't forget, folks, like, subscribe, ring a bell, whatever it takes to
do it all. Do it all.
Do it all.
Become a member.
Yeah, if you want to hang out with us,
buy some coffee. We need coffee.
Yeah, if you want to show off your aquariums, don't be shy to get in the live stream. We like when people join and
get over to Discord, and it will help you do that.
Actually,
Mermaid's Chorus just got here. Oh, she's been here. Well, cutting fabric. Okay.
The one thing I would say is get in touch with Father Fish on the Discord channel to make sure he lets you in.
Yeah, amen. All right, guys.
All righty.
Okay, folks.
Unreal, it's been fun.
Have a good one.
I'm out. Have a good night.
It's been my pleasure. Take care now.